First time I heard about Uzi was when there was Season 3 Worlds. He was pretty much carrying every game alone.
They focused down Uzi. He's still alive. He's still surviving. He stays alive.
Since then, I've followed him and I've tried to learn from him. For this tournament, it's been pretty clear that he's a step above everyone else.
Uzi dropping the ignite, able to find the initiation. Uzi with an expert dodge.
我觉得我跟他就是比较像是一个团队里面很核心的一个位置吧。
Unstoppable Xmithie gonna be stopped now by Reckless's damage. Comelter also down, a double kill for the Fnatic AD carry.
The way they play around him is probably the best in the world in terms of AD carry being like the main guy in the team. Being that one-dimensional is not always going to work. This might actually be the series where they realize that they need to be able to play more than just one style. This is just the best opportunity we've pretty much ever had as this roster to prove that we can do other things than just play around me.
我有感觉到现在是我整体来说实力最强的一次吧，也是我们团队最强。我来到这里是为了拿到冠军。
Welcome to the Zenith Arena, live from Paris, France, home of one of the most legendary crowds esports has ever known. And here you see them now. They do not disappoint with their level of energy and their level of noise as they support their two teams who are about to do battle in our first semifinal bout of the MSI knockout stage. Of course, you're getting a look at the Champs-Élysées here in the City of Lights, a magnificent backdrop for a tournament that has delivered along every stage to this point. Hello, everyone. I'm James Dash Patterson, joined by Joshua Jatleesman, Andrew Vedius Day, and Indiana Frosker in black. I've only gotten to experience the Parisian crowd through my own headset back in Los Angeles. Jat, you've been here before. Is it already measuring up to everything it's ever been?
It's something else. We were here in 2014. They're just as passionate here today, and I can't wait for this weekend.
Yeah, just the historic matchup here going all the way back to All-Stars. Sorry if I sound like I'm yelling, the crowd just erupted behind me.
It's almost hard to hear ourselves even with our own audio being pumped into our headsets. It's not just us here bringing you the party along the way. We also have our 15 other broadcast teams on standby to bring the show to fans across the world. Here you see them now, a truly global event. And with that, we are just approaching the time for the teams to take the stage. And so with the energy filling the arena, it's starting to heat up already. I can feel it. Let's send it over to Chips and Noir to welcome today's semifinalists.
Et aujourd'hui, on va s'il vous plaît pouvoir accueillir les deux premières équipes demi-finalistes. S'il vous plaît, veuillez faire un tonnerre d'applaudissements pour les RNG, champions de la Chine, menés par leur leader, le légendaire Uzi. S'il vous plaît, ce sont les monstres à abattre, les favoris du tournoi. Ils sont sortis premiers de leur phase de groupe. Encore une fois, un tonnerre d'applaudissements pour les RNG. Sur la top lane, let's me. Dans la jungle, le vétéran Corsa. Sur la mid lane, un monstre mécanique, Xiao. Et on a des carries, bien sûr, le légendaire Uzi. Et afin de le soutenir, Ming. Et ils seront accompagnés, bien entendu, de leur coach, Hurt. Et dans la jungle, en remplaçant le très agressif, FLICKR. S'il vous plaît, une fois de plus, applaudissons tous ensemble les RNG.
Et désormais, il est temps d'accueillir l'équipe qui joue à domicile. Vous les connaissez, ils sont champions d'Europe. Un tonnerre d'applaudissements, s'il vous plaît, pour les Fnatic. 6 fois champions d'Europe. Ils sont sortis des group stage suite à un tie-break décisif face au Team Liquid. Ils viennent de nouveau à Paris, devant vous, défendre les couleurs européennes. Une nouvelle fois, tandis qu'ils montent sur la scène. Du bruit, s'il vous plaît, pour les Fnatic. Et sur la top lane, je vous demande d'accueillir comme il se doit le joueur à l'ascension fulgurante, Wipo. Dans la jungle, le viking danois, du bruit pour Broxa. Sur la mid lane, le prodige européen, Caps. Au poste d'Anekari, le capitaine de l'équipe et icône de l'Europe, REBROADCAST. Et au poste de support, l'explosif Unisong. Et bien entendu, pour les accompagner, leur coach, Dylan Falco. Et au poste de remplaçant pour commencer ce match, un tonnerre d'applaudissements pour King Soa. S'il vous plaît, mesdames et messieurs, une dernière salle d'applaudissements pour le Fnatic.
Mesdames et messieurs, les matchs vont bientôt commencer. Et s'il vous plaît, le Zénith, est-ce qu'on est bien présent pour ces matchs de folie?
No shortage of fans for that #1 seeded RNG, but they're staring down the barrel of a home crowd for the 4th seeded Fnatic. It is heating up in here and heating up fast.
We do say the home crowd Fnatic, but there are a lot of RNG fans who traveled here. There's a lot of signs in the crowd supporting that team, so a good showing from them too.
All we know is it's going to be loud, and we're going to have some great League of Legends today.
I can't wait to lose my voice, ladies and gentlemen. Today's competitors earned a spot in the Final Four after a group stage full of shocking results.
And I feel like the biggest surprise really was how hot and fast the Flash Wolves came flying out of the gate. No one expected anything from this LMS squad, and they delivered, seeded in our second semifinal tomorrow.
Yeah, also the fact that RNG and Flash Wolves are above Kingzone in the standings was a huge surprise because people were expecting total domination from those LCK champions.
Now for Fnatic, many expected them to be sitting at the top 4, but the road in which they got here was definitely a struggle. Many up and down performances. Eventually they secured the 4th place spot, but it was a back and forth series up against Team Liquid.
And finally, RNG, the favorites coming into today's semifinal, had a bit of a slow start, arrived late at the tournament, but really ramped up, which is why they are so respected today.
And both of our teams that are on stage today had to fight through a tiebreaker to get the seed that they earned, which resulted, of course, in this bracket where RNG's first place finish earned them the choice of opponent in today's semifinal match, where they elected to face Fnatic.
Yeah, no surprises there, seeing as Fnatic was 4-6 and needed to play the tiebreaker. They definitely weren't going to be selecting Kingzone, who even though they showed a little bit of vulnerability during the group stage, you don't want to face them in the semifinals regardless.
I mean, the reality is when you're looking at Kingzone, Korean teams in a best of 5 are always scary to go up against, so I think it makes a lot of sense that RNG would want to avoid that. I know a couple of fans were expecting them to perhaps go for the slightly tougher opponent, but we'll see how they stack up again here today.
All right, so once again, we introduce an EU representative versus a team from the LPL and what is turning out to be a rivalry of its own at international events.
Now that said, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news for European fans. The bad news is that the historical matchup between the EU LCS and the LPL is currently 15-28. It is not great, but most of that damage has been done in group stages. When it comes to best of series, it's technically 2 versus 2 with it completely tied.
And a year ago at MSI, it was G2, EU versus LPL, and they took them down 3-1. Worlds was a bit of a different story. This is clips from the quarterfinals of the World Championship, where even though Fnatic had just won a tiebreaker to make it into the best of 5, they lost 3-1.
And Caps did mention that this battle today would be a rematch from that quarterfinal matchup, and I think that both teams have evolved a lot since then. We've got some of the young players gaining more experience. They've gone through their own trials and tribulations, and now we get to see the development of that growth today.
That's the big thing here. While it is a rematch between the orgs, we have to consider the growth and evolution of these two squads from that World's quarterfinal matchup through the group stage to this point today.
And frankly, Fnatic have kind of gone through a rebuild a little bit. Yes, it's been up and down, but they were so dominant in their home domestic region. When they came in, it was just a question of, can this Fnatic that had domestic superstars show up on an international stage? And as far as Caps is concerned, absolutely.
Yeah, also keep in mind that they're playing with Guipo despite playing most of the season with Soaz. A lot really did change for Fnatic in this group stage when compared to the Fnatic that was so dominant in the European LCS regular season.
And going up against RNG, it's going to be a tough opponent considering when you consider the first half of the groups, RNG went 2-3. Second half of the groups, 6-0. This team took a while to understand the meta and to find their form, but my God, have they found their form.
And it's really Uzi that is leading the charge right there. He said, this is the strongest that I have ever been. He is the king of ADCs, and we are sitting in an ADC meta.
And they're putting an unbelievable amount of resources towards him, letting him take jungle camps, letting him take multiple lanes of free farm in the mid game so he can power up to these absurd points and really start carrying games.
The question for me is if the rest of his team, like Xiaohu in particular, can stand up to the explosive nature of Caps.
Well, the paths that both of these teams took to get here had a lot to do with who was doing the heavy lifting throughout the group stage.
Yeah, we just talked about those insane numbers from Uzi. Yeah, they're pretty much giant. Reckless as well has been slumping, so it is really looking like a large mismatch on paper based on how many resources the teams are willing to put into them and also their output after they get gold.
It's actually terrifying how much work Uzi is able to do for his team. I think it is very easy right now to call him the best AD carry in the world. And for Reckless, who, as you identified, has been struggling, he's going to have to overcome a lot because he has a huge sense of pride for his fans, and to disappoint them would be a big burden on him throughout this series.
And of course, the question was on Reckless's effective champion pool. We know that he can play the Sivir. We know that he's brought out the Jhin, but we want more of that Xayah that he showed to really break the tiebreaker between North America and Europe.
Well, if we're looking at an advantage for RNG in the bot lane, I want to turn our attention to the mid lane as well. Xiaohu versus Caps. Caps coming up big for Fnatic throughout this tournament.
Caps has been such an impressive performer, especially when you consider what he was back at Worlds to what he is now. The growth that he's made in such a short amount of time to become one of the big carries for Fnatic is such a big deal for the young player.
And meanwhile, this is not the Xiaohu of MSI's past when he's getting these solo kills on FLICKR. Xiaohu has slowed down. Domestically, he was very inconsistent, started to warm up for playoffs, but really he's just playing fully into the Uzi strategy, making RNG a very binary team.
Yeah, and these are potentially two players that have struggled with consistency. Even though Caps has looked amazing, he has a frighteningly high death total, both in team fights, but also in isolated situations. There is a cost to all the aggression he's putting out in lane.
Well, there's going to be a ton of pressure on all four of these players today to dish out the damage, to carry their teams rather through the team fights. But now it's about that time when I want to turn my attention to you guys, put you on this spot. Here on our first semifinal of the tournament, I want to know who's going to run away with it and return on Sunday to go for the title. Jack, we're starting with you this time around.
Dash, back in November, this was a 3-1 series for RNG, and the teams have definitely changed from then. Caps has stepped up his game, and I think RNG has more heavily committed towards Uzi. But just looking at their performance in the group stage, I think Fnatic can jump out to an early lead, can take a game off of RNG, but the team fighting and the skill of Uzi, I think, will get them another 3-1 victory.
Our RNG 3-1, Bettius, what are you thinking?
Listen, Europe, things are not looking good for us right now. I think there is a clear way in which Fnatic could win this series, especially through Caps, but they're not going to do it today. I believe RNG will take the 3-1, and I think, unfortunately, Fnatic will need to surprise me if they want to take this series.
Another 3-1 here, Frost. What do you got?
I'm going to mix it up, and I'm going to say a 3-0. I think that Uzi has all of the momentum behind him. He wanted 2 championships. He's already got his LPL title, and you heard it in the opening tease. He wants that MSI title, and the only way he's going to stand up to Flash Wolves or Kingzone is if he 3-0s Fnatic today.
Now, something that we haven't talked about too much is the fact that Karsa is starting. You saw it there when the teams were announced as they lined up on the stage. And so, again, in the developing picture of how these teams interact, does that jungle matchup change the way you view this series here, starting with Karsa?
I actually think this is a bit of a strategy around the level 1s. Not necessarily that RNG have a plan for game 1, level 1, but they might suspect that the enemy team does. It's been kind of the nature, the blueprint of this tournament. And so if MLXG, who's known for his very bizarre, aggressive, and creative pathing, is just sitting back and studying what Fnatic are doing, it could give them an edge later on in the series.
All right, well, there you have it. It's time to send it over to the casters to bring us into our first semifinal bout. Enjoy.
Thank you, Dash, and thank you, Paris, for playing a wonderful host. My name is Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, joined by Martin DeFicio Lunga and Chris Papa Smithy Smith here for this first semifinal.
Oh,
you boys
boy.
ready?
It's an exciting one.
I am so excited. It is going to be a fantastic game. And for this first game, RNG have selected red side. It was their choice for side selection. They were the higher seed, so that's where they want to battle.
Yeah, not a big surprise, seeing as RNG is the kind of team that loves to grab things like an early karma pick for themselves. They can flex into 2 lanes. And also we know they can pick things like Graves against their first pick Trundle. So they have a lot of good answers on the red side.
And they already briefly mentioned about Karsa starting. It really does buck the trend, because usually when we've seen these Korean squads come in and start with a jungler, they usually choose the more unpredictable jungler, the more aggressive jungler, and the pathing jungler who really benefits from watching that jungle pathing in game 1 is the one that usually sits on the bench. This time, they're going to the pathing jungler game 1. Like they mentioned, perhaps to make that early game plan from Fnatic predictable.
Well, we're already into picks and bans, and the first ban from Fnatic is almost immediate. The Kai'Sa will not fall into Uzi's hand.
Yeah, if we follow the trends of the tournament, then Fnatic will not play Kai'Sa, and they have not shown us Ezreal either, other than 1 single game from Reckless. So there is a chance they will ban that way from Uzi as well. But they could surprise us and change things up with the first picks. Yasuo ban against Caps, well, he's insane on it.
And I really like the Karma ban on blue side in particular. RNG have been very good at flexing Karma, so valuable when you have access to the overall last pick. So it makes sense to me that on blue side, you have the ability to ban that Karma.
And you can just see Fnatic's overall focus towards Uzi. You ban his Kai'Sa, you pick his Ezreal, and you ban out two of the best supporting champions for him to hard carry the game.
This is a very big thing. You guys can see the graphic down the bottom of the screen here showing the shared champions in the middle. It is a little bit tricky because it does look like Kai'Sa and Ezreal are there for both Reckless and Uzi. Well, Uzi's played them a lot. Reckless only once per champion. The fact he's first picking Ezreal here is a change for Fnatic, and it's a very good change.
And it also allows him to hold on to the jungle pick, because we're kind of expecting a certain matchup to come up here. We were thinking first pick Trundle into the Graves, Karsa one of the best Graves players in the world. But we rush away from that, and the Skarner priority that wasn't there in the group stage is actually jumping right up when we jump into the semis.
Yeah, we have to remember that Skarner was the pick that Karsa used a lot back in the LPL.
With the Zac as well.
With the Zac, where MLXG was not really favoring that one, but with Karsa playing his second game at MSI, he shows it very early.
It's all about those kidnappers, being able to put one of your opponents out of position. The opposition, however, to deal with that Skarner, they're going to be locking in the Olaf. That's one of the answers for it, as well as putting caps back on the Taliyah.
And Olaf and Taliyah are this roaming duo that can invade. They can roam to bot lane. They're also very strong at level 1. Olaf up there with Braum as a super strong level 1 champion. So it seems like Fnatic is drafting to our expectations already.
Yeah, because one of the big things we looked at for Fnatic in order for them to win this series was the 2v2 around the mid lane needs to be impactful in the early game. You have a strong skirmish jungler, you have a pushing mid, and the Taliyah can roam to the side lanes, which is a good way to shut down Uzi.
Very interesting to see the Braum priority go way up. A Hylissang fallback champion. There could be further support bans as well to try and force Hylissang onto the back foot. It also stops them from having the Supreme level 1 of Olaf and Braum, but the priority is noticeably changing for RNG.
Very true, but also interesting that RNG are focusing a lot on Whippo up in the top lane. The Camille ban, the GP as well, so some of the carry picks for him. We know that he can play both the tank and the carry style. We famously, of course, saw him play the GP against Team Liquid in the tiebreaker that got Fnatic towards the semifinal, but it is, of course, taken away. Ornn, I like that. Just get rid of it.
Yeah, Ornn, the champion with the third highest pick and ban number together. Yeah, pick and ban rate, I should say, among all champions throughout the group stage at MSI. They do want to ban that one away, keep that away from Let Me, as Alistar will be the final ban from RNG. We'll see how Fnatic want to answer this one. One more to go for them, and it will be Zoe kept into the hands of Xiao.
And I'm very interested to see where Xiaohu goes against the Taliyah, because traditionally you pick very strong lane bullies against Taliyah. Cassiopeia, I think of as... That's already locked in.
I think that's mid lane Aurelia.
That's a very possible. We were thinking about mid lane Aurelia against Karma, has a very good ability to all in there. This could still be the mid lane Aurelia, like you mentioned.
Yeah, it is flex for now, but there is definitely a chance it goes mid lane against Taliyah specifically. We can talk more about the matchup if we see it. I want to see if Hylissang wants the range support or the Tahm Kench. I noticed in his solo queue games, he was practicing Soraka, these kind of picks, even though it's normally not really his playstyle, and looks like he's just going towards the melee support.
And Tahm Kench Ezreal, such a safe lane, can rotate as the game goes on, but largely around the safety, of course, very hard to lock down the Ezreal at the best of times. It does mean they can double down around Broxah and Caps, and they're roaming, and no bot lane can be safe.
And it looks like Fnatic is seriously thinking about this Pantheon pick right now.
Come on, Flowers.
I don't know. You gotta
Flowers.
give it to him. Come on, we're having fun with it. Now, instead, they do want to go for something a bit more in the meta, a bit more normal for what we've seen Whippo have a lot of success on. The Scion is going to be locked.
And they have to be very conservative because they need more information about this Aurelia, so they go for basically the strongest available laner with the Ornn banned away. Now RNG, show us your cards. Where is the Aurelia going is the big question.
It's going to be interesting to see with the last pick there, considering all the options if they want to just grab a choke at top lane, or Vladimir doesn't actually fully give us the information.
No, we don't have our answer.
It can definitely still be Aurelia mid with the Vladimir top on their side. I'm also noticing that Uzi is sitting on teleport at the moment here in the champion. It can still change, but it typically is the Ezreal that grabs TP, unless he wants to go for fast push style in case.
Typically the Ezreal, but Reckless has been the one to also buck the trend and go for heal and the more selfish summoner. I was talking to some of the AD carries around the world and saying, if not Ezreal, are there other TP AD carries? The only one I heard mentioned was Ashe, another utility AD carry.
Right.
The Caitlyn would be all about pushing. The uptime on that sheer pushing ability would be massive. We'll see, of course, they can wait longer on the summoners.
Mid lane, baby!
Mid lane Aurelia.
There we go. seeing them lock it in so quickly when they already knew the mid lane matchup gave it away a little bit, but you still have to consider the flex option. This is such an interesting matchup, and Xiaohu coming out on a huge carry. It is important to note, it's very much a snowball pick. You cannot fall behind.
And naturally in the 1v1, also you kind of need level 6 to have an all-in, because you will get shoved out in the early levels by the Talia and just her suite of wave clear. It's all about timings this matchup. We'll return to them as the matchup evolves.
And of course, those timings, they're also going to be dependent on the junglers. Who's there at the right time? Who's paying proper respect towards this matchup and making sure they can come out on top in that 2v2.
Exactly, and I do want to confirm also that we have TP from Uzi coming in this game. He wants to try and fast push against Reckless, but insane pick up Badface already for
Oh
game one.
yeah! We're already off to an incredible start, boys, and it's only going to get better from here as we jump into Summoner's Rift for the first time in this potential 5 games here to decide who gets to go on to the final here in only a couple of days. It's game number 1. As you can see, Fnatic taking out onto the Rift now to the cheers of the crowds. Don't know if we're going to get anything at level 1. We have seen a lot of delayed level 1 action so far at MSI.
And that's kind of the thing, is that when it comes to the analysts, they were very one-sided on the RNG prediction. I don't think you or I would change too much there. It does feel like RNG are the big favorites, but there's certainly areas of RNG you can attack that were still there, despite the fact that their results were going very one-sidedly positive in the second round, Rob.
Yeah, and one of the ways can start level 1 for Fnatic with them getting an invade off, get some information on where the enemy jungler starts. They've actually done that really well during MSI, and it allows them to snowball.
They have so much ability to check brush. They have the Ezreal Mystic Shot. They have the Olaf Axe. Either those hit and good things can happen. That delayed level 1 that we've seen so much recently will happen here. We also were expecting a roaming mid from Fnatic to profit on their side lanes. Get Bwipo or Reckless and Hylissang going. Maybe even the invades of Broxa on the Olaf. They've got that here in the Talia.
They got it, and also we were questioning a lot of the bot lane picks. Both Hylissang and Reckless with Sivir Braum almost every game. This one here, they show us first pick Ezreal. They have a safe lane and Tahm Kench, so they picked what they consider one of the strongest 2v2s they can grab that can stay safe.
It's strong, it's safe, and they also have a combat summoner advantage in the heal, because it did end up being the teleport Caitlyn coming through from RNG.
We know if Fnatic wants to come out on top here, early game advantages are one of the ways they can do it. Broxa steals away the red buff from Karsa. He'll get himself that nice early advantage, head back into his own jungle.
And this is one of the level 1 invades we just talked about, how they can get Broxa in to get him slightly ahead of the enemy jungler. This Karsa in this game. Meanwhile, we are of course looking at the stats of Fnatic's early game, which has been very strong during MSI. It's the late game that has faltered.
RNG in their 6-0 run as they entered this game. They had 2 games where they faltered against both Kingzone and Fnatic themselves in the second round, Robin. They struggled. The early game didn't suit them. They needed a big shift in the mid game.
And the early game for Fnatic, one of the guys who's also able to carry those leads and translate them into more advantages for the team, not just himself, Caps. An incredible performance so far throughout the group stage. You can see some of those numbers on your screen right now.
Very impressive. I'm still a very young mid laner, 18 years old, only his 2nd year playing as a professional.
One thing I wanted to mention is his damage share is right up there, 31% highest for mid laners. He actually still has Reckless pick up most of the team's gold, team's farm. So it's still going to be a very high damage number, and he doesn't necessarily need all the farm funneled into him to pull that off.
Oh, top lane, Whippo is going ham.
Oh, no mercy right now. Forces out the Sanguine Pool from Let Me, who gets himself back. Should have the Empowered Transfusion here in just a moment, but won't decide to use that. Instead, just goes for the back. Doesn't want to try anything too risky.
All right, good stuff from Whipple's side. Meanwhile, in that mid lane with the Irelia, as you highlighted earlier, Papa Smithy, you typically want to get a few levels. Level 6, especially if you fully stack up your passive when you're killing these minions under your turret, you can all in very easily.
And that's the timing. It's all about lasting the minions, probably with your Q, the Blade Surge, and then the all-in as the jungler comes when you ping level 6 with the Disarm is a really nasty combo.
Exactly. Another thing is also when you get your Sheen completed, it's all about the burst damage. It's very effective for you as Irelia to just have the enemy mid laner push you in, dash to a minion, and then once you have your passive fully stacked up, 4 stacks on it, if you can land that stun onto the enemy from your E, there's really nothing Caps can do in the 1v1 fight, because then you can all in with Sheen, ton of burst damage coming from your side, and Caps will have to just run away. So this Irelia pick, while it is risky, there's a lot of kill pressure from Xiaohu's side once he gets level 6, and that's Sheen.
Speaking of risky, Letme finding himself in a spot caught between two enemy players. Broxton now gonna have to flash away. Karsa looking to make this one happen. 2 versus 2 here in the river. They're able to find first blood for RNG, but can Letme get himself away from Whippo? Stun's probably gonna come through. Whippo flashing away from them. He'll get killed. Whippo grabs 1 kill, but now he'll surely fall. It's 2 for 1. Going over to the side of RNG, but can they get Karsa away? Whippo utilizing the power of the passive, and Cap cleans it up. It's 2 for 2. Bottom side, Uzi having to run away from Hylissang and Reckless as they go in, looking to find the stun. One more tongue lock. Flash to the power from Hylissang. Reckless needs a little bit more damage to find it. Ming taken low, almost taken down. One more shot could do it, and Reckless grabs kill number 3.
The bot lane that lost 2v2 against Uzi and Ming in the group stages just managed to secure a kill against the same dual lane that shot them down so hard.
Catharsis for Reckless and Hylissang, and also the crowd here in France. It's a big start, and it started off looking a bit hairy for Fnatic. When we started off this action, it was clear that Irelia would have first rotation. No surprise, the double all-in comes into Broxa. They turn on to Bwipo. Caps is going to keep firing out damage, and Fnatic getting the first kill really started the seesaw.
And after they kill Whippo here, they know, okay, they have to try and get away from the passive, and that's really a big advantage for a Sion. Even if you technically drop down 2 for 1 early, you can still keep fighting, and then we go down to the bot lane. This is such a huge moment for Hylissang and Reckless, and so important for a best-of-5 series that you start this way in game 1.
We were talking about Fnatic early game. We were talking about how they needed to be able to hold their own 2 versus 2 bottom, and how the mid and jungle needed to be a strong 2 versus 2 as well. They just showed us that's what they've done.
And when we were thinking about bot lane, we think pick the strongest 2v2 available. That's not Ezreal Tahm Kench. It balances aggression, but it's mostly on the defensive side. So for them to actually get the 2v2 kill, we haven't seen those since the Team Liquid game. The last time that RNG went down in the first round robin when they were hitting the bindings freely onto Ming at the time, and this is a really big piece of momentum for Fnatic.
Now Xiaohu hit his level 6. He has a red buff. He completed a Sheen. He has all the tools he needs to start playing really aggressive against Caps, and there's no flash on this Taliyah.
Amusingly though, to actually stack up the passive, he probably wants the minion wave on his side so he can Blade Surge in and not take auto attack harass with Summoner Airy the entire time. It's a very fickle timing for when you really get the maximum value out of the all-in disarm, and you want the Skarner there as well. Skarner himself, level 5, the level 6 soon to follow.
Level 6, such a big difference for that Skarner for Karsa in terms of what he can do, what sort of plays he can set up. You can see on the bottom side of the map right now, Uzi and Ming just continuing to push up, utilize the shoving power of the Caitlyn early on to keep Reckless and Hylissang below the turret.
Yeah, that TP coming in handy for Uzi. It is really just built for him to just perma-push the lane. Caitlyn is a pick we did not see a lot of during the group stage because most of the AD carries agreed it was too slow. Building 3 crit items before you could really carry was just not good enough. But Uzi's trying to make it work by just perma-shoving with TP.
Some more thoughts on that, but we'll hold them for now. Here comes Karsa.
Whippo gets himself away with the ultimate, does manage to get that one going before anyone's able to get in the way and interrupt it. Neither Karsa or Letme had flash available to try to block that path. Meanwhile, Caps is going to be handed off the blue buff to just continue clearing these waves and staying safe from Xiaohu.
All the AD carries to discuss, I feel like Caitlyn's the one that over the years has been discussed the most, the power trough in terms of combat and team fighting in the mid game. The one thing we've always known is get that BF sword, roam around the map. If you actually got first target in this game as RNG with a smart gank, then roaming around a BF sword, Caitlyn with teleport would be insane, as Xiaohu's coming from behind Cap.
He's getting baited, no?
To find this one, it's going to be a full-on 2 versus 2. Xiaohu now still looking to find the damage onto Caps, who's trying to cut himself away, unstoppable onto Broxton. Xiaohu having to try to maneuver. It's Karsa that grabs the kill onto the mid laner.
And we just talked about Irelia getting her ulti, getting her Sheen, and suddenly Karsa and RNG are looking towards that mid lane. Small bait, honestly, from Caps' side because Broxton was coming, but then Karsa shows up as well.
And Xiaohu had a flash advantage. Caps with no flash, very little he could do after the ult had disarmed as well. So at the end of the day, Xiaohu does pick up the kill. It'll be that window wish. It's a melee champion without flash, but that is exactly what they picked the Irelia for.
And you guys said during Champion Select, it's a snowbally matchup. You can't afford to fall behind. The CS is left a little bit wanting, but Xiaohu still 1-0-1, working on the parts for that Trinity Force. On track to hit the power spike when he needs it.
Yeah, so if you're Caps, you have to respect that, of course, the fact that this 1v1 is difficult. You have the ulti on this Taliyah. Looking at the side lanes, Vladimir sitting just with flash and has the pull, tough to tower dive. bot lane as well. There's mobility from Uzi's and then a jump from Ming. So the lane's actually pretty hard for Caps to go towards and easily set up a kill. But Fnatic, they need to get creative. They need to find a way to start snowballing one of the side lanes.
It's that front foot gameplay you're looking from every time you see Talia and Olaf locked in. They don't have mid priority on the bot side. Usually you'd love to be able to roam to the bot side. Not going to be possible. They do have a control ward to play top side. First objective top side in the Rift Herald spawning soon. Right now the Caps and Broxah duo are being stifled.
Remember that Karsa still sits with Flash and ulti on Descana. He's looking towards the stun, misses. That's the long range stun we mentioned earlier. If you manage to connect that, it sets up a very easy all-in for Xiaohu.
Take another look at how they found this kill onto Caps a moment ago.
And it's because they had that mid lane priority around bot side where they had the control ward. Xiaohu knew he wouldn't be spotted. Who's baiting who was the question we asked, but with no flash Caps, just can't stay alive.
Not any way out of that one. Broxah fortunately got himself away. It was not a 2 for 0, but still not the kind of trade that Fnatic wants to be a part of early on in this game. Bottom side again, we're taking a look at here. Very close farm. Everything's pretty much par for the course, and previously you would think that Ezreal in this matchup, remember, was trying to just get an advantage early, use something, get himself going in the mid game before Caitlyn can really become powerful. But now with the double tier build, he scales into the late game as well as RNG are onto the first trade.
That is very true. RNG also looking to secure this one. Broxah maybe throw an axe over the wall. Nope, too late for him. Let's see if actually we get a fight around it because Caps here.
Bench joining, but Ezreal still in lane.
Wants to see if he can find the seismic shove. Does land it. Tongue lashed over the wall, finds its way onto Xiaohu, but that'll be it.
To your point before, Captain Flowers, about Ezreal versus Caitlyn, it is, of course, still about the mid game for Reckless. Like, Uzi, as you can see now on a BF sword, well, Reckless already got Sheen and Pickaxe. Like, in a couple of minutes, he's going to be way stronger than Caitlyn, and that's going to be the lane Fnatic should play around. Let's see what happens bot side.
Bottom side is Hylissang knocked up into the air. It's a full all-in coming out from RNG. Hylissang will be the sacrificial lamb, so Reckless can escape.
Passive stacks up just as Karsa is coming, and have loved where Karsa has been on the map this game. Been much more about coordinating with his lanes than MLXG. That goes for a bit more of those coin flip plays at time. We return to mid lane, but one thing I also want to raise, the game goes on. Vladimir in a side lane with items, very difficult for anyone to lane against. Irelia in a side lane with items, the same story. Where Caps goes, if Fnatic doesn't control the tempo, or if they're not the ones pushing towards objectives and actually forcing RNG to react, is going to be a struggle, because I think Caps will kind of be exposed, because it feels like everywhere around RNG are foes he can't handle in the 1v1.
Yeah, Fnatic's only way to win the side lanes is by outnumbering RNG, with Tahm Kench ulti, with Talia ulti, like these very mobile champions. Here's the Tahm Kench ult towards the mid.
There comes that mobility, Xiaohu trying to outplay this one, getting himself away. A lot of dashes around, back and forth. Can he actually find the escape? He sidesteps the tongue lash. Xiaohu with some quick feet, but not quick enough.
Very fancy. That's what happens with the Irelia and the ability to blade surge again and again. The new side of the newly reworked Irelia. But no escape path there. That's what we mentioned with Flash down. 45 seconds of that. Just let me and Bwipo, they're just having a tank fight up top.
Just a little bit of cheeky back interruption coming out from Let Me there. Doesn't want to allow Bwipo to have the back timing that he desires. He'll keep that one interrupted, just go back and forth a little bit. As you can see, Broxah clearing out the Scuttle Crab in the top part of the river, going back to farm up more, but I want to take another look at this play mid.
Yeah, this is the most standard play from Fnatic and Hylissang specifically. He loves to just go from base straight to mid and try and secure a kill. There is no flash from Xiaohu's side, so the moment three members show up, he can't get away. Good kill for Fnatic, and this is what we talk about. Use Tahm Kench ult and Talia ult to outnumber RNG. Don't try and beat them 1v1. You don't have to in this game.
Fortunately, the outnumbering potential hasn't led to aggressive wards, and I feel like Talia, Olaf want to know where Skarner is at all points. They know where Skarner is now. He shows in the bot lane. Just wants to pick up another cannon minion towards his quest, as he does have already the Targon's Brace. One thing we should mention is that when that Targon's completed, the extra wards for the Skarner, when they have the teleport AD carry, means that someone like Reckless trying to cut between lanes is going to be spotted by the extra vision only available to RNG.
Yeah, you can see their answer to all the mobility of Fnatic. Yep. Silence. Teleports everywhere.
Hey.
Mid lane TP, AD carry TP. So when you show up with three members, they show up with three members. Luckily for Fnatic, they will be there faster, as there's a 4.5 second, of course, challenge time on TP, but that's a small window.
Top side, you can see Bwipo giving Let Me a pretty hard time here, preventing him from getting back to the lane as quickly as he wants to. Whippo sitting in a good spot so far, has the Abyssal Mask completed, so he'll be magnifying some of that damage, not only for his own Roar, but also for all of that DPS that Caps will look to bring in these mid-game fights. See if RNG can collapse here onto Fnatic. They have Karsa waiting. Wants to come around, looking to find this one. Flash into the pole, still looking to set something up. You're going to see Hylissang coming in with the Tom Kench ult potentially here as well. Xiaohu able to find the kill onto Cap. Bottom side, it's 2 versus 2 as Hylissang falls. Now you've got the TP in from Letme as well. Broxah looking to finish off the kill onto Xiaohu. Instead going to be stunned up and nearly brought down before he can find that kill, but he does grab one onto Xiaohu. It's Karsa who gets the kill back onto Broxah, while bottom side, it's still a 1 for 0. Going the way to RNG.
Ended up a 3-for-1 overall. Hylissang was trying to get there and help his mid laner, interrupted on the Abyssal Voyage, and then collapsed upon. That first turret does go the way of the teleport. Caitlyn, this is worrying times for Fnatic.
And you can see on your screen right there, RNG, when they get bot first tower, a 4 wins, 0 loss record at MSI.
Yeah, it's suddenly looking pretty rough here for Fnatic after that skirmish. It was fairly even before the play, but let's see it again. Karsa's kept this flash ult for so long in the game.
And Fnatic have never known where Karsa was on the map because they haven't had the deep vision. You'll notice on the bot side, that's the interruption that was lost in all of the disarray. Hylissang going down, outnumbering everywhere, and this is without even the teleports being tested.
And we just see that game plan from RNG with the Irelia plus Skarner, in case there's something like a blind big Talia from Caps. They had it ready, they instant locked it in the second phase when they could. And that's been a big pick for Xiaohu in the mid lane. But of course, Karsa is the one who's controlling the early game.
Karsa 2-1-4 on this Skarner, 6 out of 7 kill participation. He's been doing a very, very good job so far for RNG, setting up these plays and facilitating the kills, getting where they need to go. We'll see now if Fnatic can make their collapse onto the top side. It's Meng who's caught out. 4-man collapse here should spell his doom as Rekkles cashes in on there.
Outnumber RNG, they're trying again.
Meanwhile, Uzi now found himself in a really bad spot as Caps cleans it up and grabs another one for the European.
And Fnatic needed a moment like that where they were the ones ahead of the play. Very nice roam coming in from Guifo. Ming had no flash, he was going to go down as well. But Talia catching Uzi in transition. His teleport is down. Uzi can take a long time to get back out on the map. And in the meantime, Ezreal gets refarmed top lane, and Karsa, he's just trying to find objectives where he knows Fnatic is not.
Fnatic top side means Drake should be free on the bottom side, but Fnatic will be happy to get some of this global gold into their pockets, taking down that top lane tier 1 turret, tying the gold lead up, as Xiaohu and Karsa do have this second Drake for free. Cloud Drake needs more movement speed, and the rest of the team can now reassemble in the mid lane. But Fnatic, with Rift Herald under their belts, may be able to use this to set up the next play.
Oh, we might get something around the mid lane this game. So much action.
Karsa looking to find some kind of a pull here. We'll see what he can get, but it doesn't look like much of anything. The flash away from Hylissang.
And Hylissang does have the QSS super early into the game, not even a boost too, for the roaming phase to allow him to be the more tasty one. Karsa could not get access to his buddy.
And I really like the early purchase of the QSS from Hylissang, making sure that if anybody else gets pulled by the Skarner, you devour them, you save them. If you get pulled by the Skarner, you pop the QSS, you're out.
I think this graphic here is very important for this specific game. Actually, we can look at it after the replay. It is just everyone going top lane.
And it's a out rotation, but there's a reason why I want to speak right now, and it's because the timing for this, guys, was so narrow. We're closer and closer to the time where the early Targon Spray Skarner can put down wards, can make these sort of plays very obvious and know about it very early and avert them. There's that narrow time until the quest is cashed in. So very nice for Fnatic to execute when they could.
And this game right here, the CS difference between Rekkles and Uzi at 15 minutes was more or less nothing. There were like 2 or 3 CS in Uzi's favor. Rekkles and Hylissang, they managed to get a kill in their lane. It's been a much better game for Fnatic's bottom lane, and that is important to highlight compared to what has happened earlier.
Fnatic now pushed down the mid lane, looking to siege up against that tier 1. Now they're going to be collapsed on RNG, trying to make the play, but Karsa's going to drop first. Unstoppable Olaf falls down next, 1 for 1 so far. Xiaohu looking to push this even further, able to grab the kill on the enemy support. Whippo tries to get himself out. Rekkles still going to be firing, but Fnatic have lost the fight.
And Irelia and specifically Vladimir got access to the back line. So much damage with the Hemo Plague, and Xiaohu diving in. It's a 2-for-1. Doesn't look like it's going to translate into an objective, though, just yet.
Oh, it's so hard for Fnatic to peel here. They only have the Tom Kench, and he can save 1 member for the start of the fight, but everyone else can't really assist when there are so many champions from RNG rushing at the squishy backline. Broxah tried his best, but that's why he went down first.
But my excitement is in the first 20 minutes, it has felt like a boxing match where one team's made a jab and then the other team has had a counter jab. It hasn't been just one team monopolizing momentum. As we start this fight, it's looking like it's going to be very even, but Let Me gets easy backline access, and that's when it gets good for RNG.
And Uzi's free hitting the entire fight as well, because all the focus is on trying to stop a Vladimir or an Irelia. This is exactly why we mentioned Xiaohu and this snowball pick. If he gets ahead, he's tanky enough and he's strong enough to dive into the back line, and he's hard to shut down. If he fell behind, you can basically just kill him almost instantly, but that's not going to happen. He's going to get hysterics soon.
And to the point you mentioned earlier, Papa, talking about how this looks like it's a boxing match, how these teams are just going blow for blow, and the gold is very close. Remember the first time these teams played each other in the opening game of the group stage here at MSI 2018, it was super close the entire time. It ultimately came down to RNG getting a big Kog'Maw ulti that revealed everyone to take the fight that wins the game.
Yeah, they played very close games, and honestly, this is the perfect start to this series here. Fnatic's bot lane is doing better than in the group stages, but we still get to see Uzi on a Caitlyn pick up kills in fights, and Xiaohu, of course, on this Irelia hit. A surprise pick of game 1, down in CS, but up in kills.
And also has the ability, eventually, whether it's in the side lane or just diving the back line in a 5v5, to actually close gaps on an Ezreal, which is usually a very difficult predicament when he hits 40% CDI, regardless of which the Sheen upgrades he goes. Can notice on the screen it was Trinity Force Ezreal this time.
And speaking of the Ezreal, the Muramana fully charged, second tier, only recently began charging, so that won't be an Archangel's Seraph's Embrace anytime soon, but he is on track to getting that late game power.
It's going to be a smaller window, though, than we normally see, just because Uzi has picked up that first turret gold. He has farmed very well, and he has 2 kills and 2 assists, so he's actually going to hit his 3 items fairly soon. He's already sitting with about 1,000 gold in his bags. Reckless, though, is stronger at the moment. Let's see what happens bot lane. Here's the outnumbering tactic again.
Let Me outnumbered, drops the Hemo Plague, just trying to buy a little bit more time. TP is going to be coming in here. Uses the flash to get himself away. TP's completed. Xiaohu and Uzi both decide to show up. It's going to be big. It's going to be a party. And RNG brings the whole crew. Whippo tries to escape, but Carson's coming in as well to make sure there's no way out. And RNG grabs themselves 3 for free.
This is exactly what we talked about, how Fnatic will come down first, faster than RNG, try and secure a kill when they're 3v1. But RNG's TPs, there are many of them, and they will react fast. It takes a couple of seconds, but the moment they show up, they're going to turn it around.
And when I saw the Hemo Plague hit multiple members, I knew Let Me was going to come out healthy. Talia had not committed to any use of the Weaver's Wall, and RNG said, okay, Conga line to Baron, let's take it now.
This is what I like to see. You don't just take the fight, you take the fight plus more. Baron should drop rather rapidly, down to about half HP. Fnatic looking to come in, cast flash, collapse from the bottom. Broxah has done some amazing steals in the past, but he won't be able to get in there just yet today. RNG have the Baron low, but they are going to be forced off of it. Xiaohu now going to fall in the back line, trying to fight his way out of this one. Won't be able to, and Fnatic now have access to the pick.
All of RNG respected Broxah so much that they stepped away to try and kill him, but suddenly the Baron resets, and RNG, they're low.
Responsibilities have changed. It's now RNG's work to shut down Fnatic's attempt here. Uzi potentially getting caught out, and Whippo hits a big ult! Cap goes on a killing spree as Fnatic now have themselves exactly where they want to be. They head back into the pit.
Now Broxah's low, but that means he does the Baron faster. Are they going to try this? It looks like the answer is yes. Broxah, because of the nature of Olaf, wouldn't be baited out in his ult. They clear the blast pad. Nice stuff, Fnatic, but does that mean Baron?
Hylissang flashing over the wall just to hit that blast cone and keep Karsa away. Let Me goes in. He finds the kill into Hylissang. Karsa now into the pit as well. RNG doing everything they can to stop this. Whippo on the front line, stunned up, blocked off immediately. Cass grabs the kill into Ming. It's still going to be a 2 versus 4, but Fnatic can no longer do the Baron.
This game is insane. Both teams, we're only 23 minutes into the game, are dancing around the Baron. They're not done yet.
Let Me not going to let Fnatic get away. He grabs 1 kill. Can he find any more? Can't quite get another transfusion off, but Xiaohu will like to clean up the mess. He grabs the kill into Whippo. Steric's Gage gonna proc as he makes his way out. and Reckless will still survive.
They've been fighting for 2 minutes around this Baron. It keeps seesawing one way and the other. The boxing analogy is really working out. Nice one, Papa Smithy. They're going to have to back away now, though. We finally can breathe. Flowers can be a bit of a back rub here. You can have plenty more team fights to go in a moment. Every time Xiaohu comes in, there's some creeping dread, but this time it's Xiaohu in trouble.
Not even just a moment, mere seconds before another fight breaks out. Xiaohu collapsed upon by a couple different members of Fnatic here. Hylissang stunned up Xiaohu, trying to get himself away. Expertly dodging around, but only so long before he does fall to Caps.
All right, Reckless gets an Infernal Drake and a secure kill on Xiaohu. What's happening in this game is that there are so many abilities that allows you to jump around the map a lot faster than we normally see.
Name a couple of them, Deficient.
Okay, we got Talia ult, we got Tam Kenshul, we got TPs on our side. Sion ult. There's so many ways to force these engages, and teams are not reacting fast enough to what's actually happening, and they're forced to just take the fight. This is after RNG stepped away from Baron. Fnatic gets to engage.
And just the seminal moment of Uzi was for once left all alone. He had no way to get out that time, no exit plan. Uzi survived for the greater cause. Take a deep breath, we look at the gold. It's basically even at 25 minutes. All those analysts are suddenly now sweating because this game's right up in the air.
And we talk about how close the gold is. I want to look at the gold right now, specifically on the AD carries, these players that these teams so often play so much around. You can see both of those tier items now completed, although the second one isn't fully evolved yet into the Seraph's Embrace on the side of Reckless, while Uzi has hit that 3 big crit item spike that we always talk about with Caitlyn.
And if you're going to ask me, these two guys run each other 5v5 with, say, 4 or 5 items, I do favor RNG. I think they're the easier execution, but those points don't matter if a Baron goes out. It's going out fast.
Why run at each other when you can run towards the objective? Fnatic start this one up. They get it very low, down to about 3K. RNG will force them off.
Oh, I think Fnatic maybe could have tried to just finish it. Kaza had no flash to get into the pit easily, but just by him showing up, all of Fnatic, they step away. They don't want to risk a steal.
They have to go very defensive. That means they give up position. The mid lane turret goes down much later than expected at 26 minutes. Small nose ahead for RNG.
This is kind of what we were looking at, though, in this matchup, how Fnatic early and mid game can definitely match RNG. They can definitely force plays that can get them ahead. The question is, can they play the late game against Uzi and RNG?
And that's kind of the issue, is that 5v5 again, you're just looking at the champions, you heavily favor RNG on that particular side. The Vladimir, if he gets the Emo Plague off, the safety of Uzi on the Caitlyn, and then just Xiaohu getting fairly unkillable and still doing relevant damage. Probably giving Guardian Angel next.
Right.
The 3-item build here. That's the part where it falls apart for Fnatic, because I like Talia in an extended fight when she's chasing, when she's sieging, but in a 5v5, she's outclassed.
Right now, Fnatic have done a good job keeping this game very close. Again, I want to harken back to the first time these two teams played each other. It was so close for so long, and it all came down to that one decisive moment, that final fight. And we may just be staring down the barrel of yet another game like that, as every time one team gets something, the other immediately responds, and I think it's going to have to come down to who makes the bigger play around this Baron.
Exactly, like, I'll take 5 more games like this, where there's so many globals and so many fights happening where teams need to react instantly. We can bring up a couple of new play-by-play guys if we need more team
we got
fighting.
back up to you,
If you run out of steam at some point, we got to
Come on, I got you. I got you. We got this. 5, 6, 7. It don't matter how many games. We'll get through it. But Fnatic and RNG both putting everything out there already just in game number 1 so far here. Fnatic with control over the mid lane right now. Want to get that one pushed out. As you can see, RNG just playing the side lanes a bit.
Fnatic's best ability right now is the Weaver's Wall under a turret and trying to take an objective, but hold that, boy.
Can't get himself away. Let me coming in from the flank. That's going to be big onto the back line as Reckless tries to get himself away. Going to be taken down before he can as Proxen tries to get some revenge. Let me take it incredibly low. He gets a double kill before he falls, but that is RNG's fight. Whippo shot to pieces by Uzi in the back line, and it's 4 versus 2, favoring RNG.
And we just talked about the 5 versus 5. We talked about how Fnatic needs to show us they can still win later on in the game, and we get a big team fight with this Vladimir hiding in the flanks, taking down Reckless.
And I was going to say, Weaver's Wall behind an objective, take the siege, but make sure you look at your flanks. The flanks were very relevant, very early. Let me get in the back. You know it only goes one way. Reckless didn't get to play a lot of League of Legends. He was just dead.
No, Reckless had no chance to do anything there. Not with the Shirelia's Reverie plus the death cap damage. The Vladimir just ran wild in this fight.
So let me right now, sitting without teleport.
Where's Let Me should be the question every moment asked by Fnatic, and they don't know.
They don't know right now. When he goes in, Hylissang's only way to try and save his AD carry is actually to devour him before he gets hit by this ulti here from Let Me, and before Reckless then tries to jump away to stay alive, because it will deal damage even in the belly of a Tahm Kench.
It's so hard to criticize your tunnel vision on who's in front of you. We saw Bwipo clearing a control ward, but it never spotted the Vladimir. He was looking forward. Vladimir from the backside. Good luck, goodbye.
RNG now stand with Baron buffs all over the place. They got themselves a 4,000 gold lead, and Cap may have been caught out. Now that is a huge pick for RNG, and the push will mount itself in earnest now.
Get another pick here. Caps could not stay alive. No QSS on his side. Not sure if he would have survived with it. But in the end, it's RNG with another one, and they can push into this turret here. Uzi's also getting very fed.
And then you have a one-man siege machine in a 3.5 item Caitlyn. There is no real attempt to initiate here, but they need Caps to make something happen. This should be inhibitor RNG.
RNG can brute force this one down rather effectively. Trap line being set up as well just to discourage any possible ideas that Fnatic may have of trying to fight back against this. One more auto attack does it, as now RNG can fall back, do whatever they like, really. Still 10 seconds left before Caps is back in the picture.
There's no way for Fnatic to suddenly TP in behind them or appear and surprise RNG. So at this point here, Fnatic needs the perfect engage to their team fight. It's just very difficult when you have a Sion rushing in, but your Taliyah and Ezreal actually don't want to reach the back line. No. They want to kill whoever is in front of them, and the appealing is just the Tahm Kench Devour against so many champions that can reach Caps and Reckless.
The only 5v5 that looks like a Fnatic 1-1 is if there's a huge fight, all the summoners are down, and the Weaver as well is actually able to cut members off. Like you say, Deficio, given that Taliyah and Ezreal can really only hit the first target, Let Me's going to be somewhere. Skarn is going for another flank. Hell, Irelia might be from behind. That's the issue, is that working with all those variables, nigh on impossible.
There's also a chance, though, with Fnatic knows exactly where the flank is coming from, that they can actually kite back.
Pulled off of the wall! An awesome collapse from RNG.
Right in the face of Caps, and he's not going anywhere.
And that was the chilling smite from range to actually pull him off the wall. The Impale after that one. Caps gone for damage. He was the one with all the gold. Sadly, the QSS, I think that time again, wouldn't have got him out. Nice play by Carson.
And even when we were talking about Caps and his performance on this team and how he's done so well for Fnatic at MSI so far, one of the criticisms we had was the fact that he gives up a lot of deaths, either isolated or in team fights, and the past 2 deaths have been critical losses for Fnatic.
That's why this game has really highlighted how Fnatic has played during this group stage. We see a lot of focus on getting early advantage to big plays, like this one.
Oh, Hylissang wanting to collapse on this one. Uzi into the front line, gonna be caught off, gonna be picked off! And he is out of the picture. This may be exactly what Fnatic needs. A double kill for Broxton, but Xiaohu's under the back already. Grabbing the kill onto Reckless. Caps respawns as Hylissang tries to flash over the wall to keep himself alive. Xiaohu taken very low. Bwipo tries to channel the decimating smash, can't quite find it. But now with Caps back alive, RNG has to head for the hills. They will be able to pick up Hylissang on their way out. No way for that Kench to escape the bench. Goodbye, sir, as Xiaohu picks up the money for it. Fnatic shouldn't grab anything else here.
See the power of that late game. Irelia, she can single out one. She can get backline access. She may not have AoE like the Vladimir, but she's doing the job at killing Reckless. So Reckless can't kite around like we saw Prey and some of our great Ezreal players in the group stage. Caps respawns and walks up. Suddenly the goal lead is ballooned. It was so even 5 or 6 minutes ago, but now it feels like it's RNG's game to lose.
See it engage again. It's Sion ult combined with Hylissang.
It's a pinch between the two.
It's a great engage from Fnatic, also knowing that Irelia and Vladimir are not there when the fight starts, but this is the problem. Once they get into the back line, you can't stay alive.
No. Xiaohu doesn't even end up losing the Guardian Angel here. Diving behind the entire enemy team, taking out the AD carry and escaping with his life. Against an Irelia like that, against a Vlad like what Let Me's got in this game, Reckless's job is very, very tough.
Fnatic were able, in the mid-game, to still find kills. The kills on top side, I will not remember, from smart moves. They knew how to use their comp early. We've outlined it a couple of times as a casting team. When it comes to the 5v5, the champs just outclassed.
I mean, also, I just think RNG, with this smart plan, against what they expected to be a roaming mid laner from Fnatic, by bringing multiple teleports on their side, by having a mid laner that can really skirmish against Cap. So if he's not leaving his mid lane, he's going to be under pressure from this Irelia pick. So RNG had a smart plan to deal with what Fnatic was going to break.
Uzi gets himself away from Whiplow's initiation, and now the 5v5 breaks out. Karsa going to be taken low, still able to find the suppression in the back line. Goes Xiaohu, looking to find the damage onto Reckless. The peel is not enough, and the killing spree for RNG is only going to get better from here. Xiaohu taken low, but it's a double kill for Uzi. It's a double kill for Xiaohu, and that is going to be the ace for RNG.
That'll be game one as well. That time there was even the Surge Shield, but nothing can stop the Irelia from killing Reckless. That's all it's going to be about, and RNG going to win game one.
RNG's late game team fighting trumps Fnatic this time around. They earned the victory in what was an incredibly close game, and they'll go up 1-0.
This is the kind of game one we wanted to see.
Yep.
Fnatic, they come out. They have Ezreal first pick for Reckless. They play aggressive in the early game. They get a lot of kills, but RNG show why so many teams now respect them, because they're reacting to this aggression. They are coming in with TPs. They're coming in with a game plan to shut down what Fnatic is trying to do. And while it was back and forth and could have gone both ways, once we got to the late game, it was heavily in RNG's favor.
Turns out if we can make the three-point plan to try to target RNG also have the humility to take a step back and understand where they're weak. There were those consistent signs that the early game might be a struggle for them, but they adapted well. Was it completely flawless? No.
Right.
Was it exciting in the mid-game? Hell yes.
I think Fnatic can go into next game with the same plan. Yes. Because this comes down to then some of the execution in the different skirmishes you're finding around, or the Baron where we had 5 minutes of just non-stop back and forth. In the end, though, they look at this Irelia and Vladimir and they say, okay, late game, with just the time Kench peeling for 80 carry is just not possible. They needed to get ahead before that.
They've got to be more aware of the flanks as well. We saw multiple times where it was just the Irelia or the Vlad able to get into that back line. And like you said, with just Kench, you've got to have eyes on those flanks all day long, or else there's just no way for Reckless to play League of Legends.
Well, we've had best of fives like this where the big favorites coming in didn't look vulnerable, looked like they were going to be counted out very early. This one went blow for blow a long time. Fnatic will be frustrated with no victory, but at least they know that they can at least get there and attack RNG.
All right, to hear more about that explosive game number one, let's now hand things over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you very much, Flowers. Real quick, everybody, give me one of these. Check that pulse. You feel that? That's 43 kills in 35 minutes. Are you kidding me? Action-packed game one here to kick off the series in RNG. They come out on top with an Irelia mid of all things.
Welcome to the LPL. We like it fast, we like it bloody, and Fnatic got their first taste.
It was such a great game to watch, and I love the draft in its entirety because we saw developments from Fnatic, we saw RNG bringing their own essence of uniqueness, and I think overall, both teams had a clear idea of what they wanted to do. Fnatic kind of geared towards that roaming style that they found a lot of success with towards the later half of the group stages, whereas for RNG rather, they went much more towards kind of a 1-3-1, but then it devolved into split team fighting.
It's in the past, but he's let them die.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Fnatic was able to make the game not about Uzi versus Reckless, but about Fnatic versus RNG. It got really crazy around the Baron pit, only at the very end where you're thinking like, oh man, Uzi's starting to do damage, but really I thought was more drawn to Xiaohu's Irelia and Letme's Vladimir diving the Fnatic backline.
Now, while we do have the champ select on our screen, I do want to kind of point at two things. Now, Vedius, we were talking about this idea that if you draft for teamfight across from RNG, you must execute better on the team fights. And my problem is that when you have Ezreal and Tahm Kench, I don't know how you get a safer bottom lane in terms of creating space or a safety net for Reckless for him to consistently get blown up in those team fights. And it wasn't just Irelia diving back there, it was also the Vladimir. I don't know what other options you have other than just taking away those champions. You have Essence Shift, you have Flash, you have Tahm Kench Devour.
Stand next to Tahm Kench.
That is probably the big thing that we're going to be pointing out in just a bit. Before we get to those late game team fights, let's take a look at the early game and the way it developed. We asked Fnatic to create some action in the early game. Look for those advantages as opposed to trying to extend it super late.
Yeah, and this one was actually, I think, in RNG's favor up until the point where they killed Whippo. Then is when I think there was actually a little bit of miscommunication, because I think we could have turned the 2v2 here. Caps basically goes in after Whippo's dead, but I think he would have had to run away from this, completely zeroes in on the kill to Karsa. Xiaohu then later thinks, oh, maybe I'd be able to help, but this was advantage Fnatic.
Yeah, and then it just continues to snowball from there, and finally Reckless and Hilly find their revenge, and they manage to find a kill in the 2v2.
And I think there were just a number of things that happened that neither side expected. Number one, the fact that Fnatic had priority mid with Talia pushing the Aurelia under, they assume that they can go for this fight because their mid laner should get there first. But he doesn't. He sacrifices the farm, Xiaohu joins in, and immediately it turns things initially in the favor of RNG. Whereas in the bot lane, they seem to think that they have all this pushing power, that they can just freely push up the lane. But Tahm Kench is not a support that you can just freely underestimate. And the moment Hylissang sees an opportunity, they just go for the all-in. And I love that we're seeing so much more confidence from this 2v2 of Fnatic, because that is what many fans were expecting to see.
But this game, oh, go ahead.
I agree with the confidence there, but my only issue is that once we had kind of these weird skirmishes in the mid-river, we never got to see a moment where Caps was able to execute on that bot lane, you know, Talia ultimate. I wanted to see a bit more roaming there, and I don't think that's necessarily on Caps. I think that's on RNG. They set up beautiful traps, making sure that he was never able to impact those side lanes as much as we would have wanted.
I mean, there was no time to breathe in this game. It was kills on kills on kills. We even saw a triple TP into the bot lane from RNG to salvage this play.
This was amazing. We kind of referred to it as the clown car TP because it looked like one. You're thinking, okay, surely this TP just gets canceled, but then boom, boom, boom. It wasn't even perfectly timed. You're like, wait a minute, it's still going?
It was literally cancel the TP. Oh, okay, yeah. 2 people. Oh my God, 3 people.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, this is just one of those things, though, where it's we're developing meta within the tournament. We saw the TPs on the Ezreals. Now they're coming out on the Kates, and it's very clear that RNG is looking for fights. They're so confident in the way they stack up against any other team in this tournament when it comes to champion interaction.
Yeah, I think that RNG are such a good team fighting team. Like, Frost, you and I talked a lot about it coming into the tournament, where you were like, they play 1-3-1. I was like, no, they play team fight. I'm like, oh, it turns out they play both. But whenever you see RNG versus Fnatic, it always gets to one big team fight at the end. And Fnatic need to find a way in order to either have the better team fight comp or avoid it completely, because every single time, RNG are coming out on top.
So let me ask you again, Chad. Where should Ezreal be standing in a late game team fight?
Right next to Chumcatch. He was standing right next to Hillsong, but then he shift flashes away and doesn't get feast until the end. Yes, the ult still would have landed, but they would have been able to disengage a little bit, and this just showed such a drastic difference. Look at Uzi's health bar, 100% untouched in that last fight.
And I do want to give a lot of credit to Let Me to find that backline dive, and Vedius, you just talked about how they're able to play a 1-3-1 and a team fight. A champion like Vladimir is so dangerous on a team like RNG. Not just because they can flex it, but he can play the side lane, he amplifies the damage into the team fights, and I don't know if Fnatic have an answer to it rather than just banning it or grabbing it from Whippo.
Now, the gold differential at the end of the game makes this look like a stomp, but you could see it on the gold graph there. It was an explosion of gold, an infusion of gold over to RNG following that team fight, a Baron, and a couple more to follow. It was really close up to that point.
Yeah, and I think if Fnatic can have a positive takeaway from this, it's that they were still pushing the tempo on RNG and they were putting themselves in a position to win. The worry is they have done that 3 times against RNG now, going back to the group stage, and lost 0 of them. So they can't become self-defeatist about this, and they have to just figure out how to execute a little bit better in team fights.
And this kind of comes back to what we were discussing earlier on, right? These games are going to come down to one big team fight, but if Fnatic choose to draft more towards it, they're going to put their lanes at deficits, which is another way in which RNG will just snowball, because we know how dominant players like Uzi are in the laning phase. So they need to find a compromise. They need to find a way in which they can have a solid laning phase while still being able to draft good mid-game team fights, and Vladimir, I think, could be the big pick for that.
All right, you're pointing to Vladimir. Fnatic has elected to stay on blue side for game 2, as they have side choice in 2 and 4. So as well as the Vladimir pick, how else are we looking for Fnatic to give themselves some breathing room here within this series?
You know, I really liked Fnatic's pick from blue side. I thought the priority on Ezreal was exactly what they needed to do. It's now just a question of, do they feel that they can run this back and just have slightly better execution? You know, team up more with that Tahm Kench so you're not, you know, flashing away into danger. Maybe they change up the Scion. I know that Whippo is very confident on the Scion, but I really do think that a Shin could throw a wrench into plans. He can build the banner, he can challenge the Vladimir in the side lanes, and get to team fights faster.
I was going to ask, because it's clear there, we like the team comp they built, but with both a Vladimir and an Aurelia diving in, is there something to be said for removing one of those 2 picks, you know, from the side of RNG so as to create more safety for Reckless in those team fights?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just about being more cognizant of how much diving power they have. As to Frost's point, I did like their draft. Maybe the support pick changes to Braum if they can try and grab that earlier on in the draft, and it could block some of Aurelia's skills. But other than that, I liked it.
For me, I think there are two main things that Fnatic just have to recognize coming into game 2. Number one, find this kind of compromise in terms of the draft. But number two, like you touched on it, this flanking and ability to dive as well. Like we heard the casters talking about it, and I just think that the ability for Letme and Xiaohu to constantly find this pincer attack movement in every single fight is something that Fnatic have to be way more aware of, especially seeing as this is the 3rd time that it has happened against them now.
With this game as an example, does Fnatic want this many kills in that little time? In terms of the overall combined kills per minute, is that the style of game that Fnatic wants to be playing in this best of 5?
Absolutely. You do not want to take RNG, a slow, steady game where you just snowball up into 25, 30 minutes team fights, because as the other two have been saying, they keep running into this brick wall that is RNG's team fighting. Get an advantage. Don't fight them on fair fight. Use caps, especially on early playmaking champions like the Taliyah, and just try to break it earlier.
Looking for the same number of skirmishes, but for a few more to fall in their favor. Game 1 of Fnatic versus RNG has certainly delivered. Don't worry, Game 2 of the series is coming up after the break.
S'il vous plaît, veuillez faire un tonnerre d'applaudissements pour les RNG!
Flash away, Karsa looking to make this one happen. 2 versus 2 here in the river. They're able to find first blood for RNG, but can Letme get himself away from Wimmo. Himself away, TP's completed, Xiaohu and Uzi. Both decide to show up, it's gonna be big, it's gonna be a party! And RNG brings the whole crew.
Coming though, they're coming. I got K. Nice. Nice, kill them all. We need to peel Aurelia.
The peel is not enough, and the killing spree for RNG is only gonna get better from here. Xiaohu taken low, but it's a double kill for Uzi. It's a double kill for Xiaohu, and that is gonna be the ace for RNG.
Predator, proud partner and official monitor provider.
Hello and welcome back for Game 2, where Fnatic hope to strike back against RNG as we prepare for this round 2 of this bout. A reminder that for the duration of MSI, you can rep your region with your team's MSI icon, awarding your server prizes for the region with the most support. But right now, one of the regions that wants support is the European region. They got to rally behind Fnatic so they can strike back here in this second game. They had a fun performance, a close game in number 1, but now they've got to fix some of those issues.
I think the players after the first game are already exhausted because there were so many things happening in these games. It was like non-stop fighting.
They had Paris bouncing, they had us bouncing. It was a very high-tempo game, a fun game to watch. But now it's game 2, and where this all falls is going to be really interesting to track because the adaptations are certainly going to come in.
Yeah, but I really hope that Fnatic will look at this first game and say, it wasn't the draft that was the problem.
No.
It wasn't, you know, the idea we had for how to beat RNG. It was just the execution in the actual fight. So there is a chance they just go in and say, you know, we can grab the first pick Israel. We can pick a roaming mid laner still for Caps because it was successful for at least the first 20 minutes of the game.
Just got to tighten the team fights up a little bit. Watch the flanks a bit harder.
Or try to get more before the team fight phase, because of course they focus super on being able to roam, being able to outnumber, and largely able to do that in the first 20, but the true team fights, the 5v5s, they weren't set up for that.
Also, they probably got a little bit surprised about the Aurelia from Xiaohu and how well he actually played the champion, always killing Reckless in the backline. That is a potential phase 2 ban for Fnatic.
Small note also, Fnatic has chosen blue side. They've allowed RNG to jump over to the red side. We might actually just see the same sides every game this series.
Well, we are seeing the same first ban. Fnatic instantly banned Kai'Sa in game number 1. They're doing the same thing here in game number 2 as RNG again refuses to give Yasuo over to Caps.
Yeah, so last time Fnatic banned Kai'Sa, Karma, Morgana on their side, and RNG banned Camille, Yasuo, and Rakan. They have not selected the Camille just yet. They might change certain things. That is going to be the Talia ban. They feel like there was still enough happening from Caps' side that they don't want to deal with.
They've also revealed the Aurelia, and that's something that you can't necessarily pull wool over the eyes on a second time. They could still return to it as other matchups it would fit into. With Karma and Talia gone, the Aurelia chances go down.
Yeah, exactly, because again, Fnatic, if Talia gets locked in on their side, if it was open, could ban Aurelia. And Xiao had his best game of the tournament on that champion last time. We can't expect that every single time. So Rakan, once again, to avoid Zyrakan, and that's what we talk about. Take the Ezreal again, it worked fine.
6 out of 7 pieces of this draft are identical to game number 1 so far. The only thing different being that Talia ban swapped out for the Camille. Ezreal locked in for Fnatic. We'll see how RNG want to respond to this one.
With the Karsa still in the lineup, Caitlyn Skarner is a very possible response here. The teleport Caitlyn was up 6 or 7 CS in lanes, obviously went quite comfortably because of the naturally strong laning phase of the Caitlyn. Will they go for the Skarner again, though, on the red side?
I think there's a high chance they can grab Skarner, especially if they want to play around Xiaohu again, because it is so good for the all-ins, but they instead value this flex Vladimir. Letme had a great performance in the last game, and they're probably expecting Whippo to take it.
And RNG's red side drafts have been dominated by strong flex picks in the first round on red side. Predictably, before it was the Karma, then moving it over to the Vladimir, a true flex pick here. The Camille was banned in game number 1, and does so to be a flex pick for Fnatic. We've already seen jungle Camille this tournament.
I would expect it to go top lane for
because
Whippo.
of Broxa.
Yeah, because of Broxa, but I also want to talk about Braum real quick, because that was taken by RNG in the last game, and Bing had a strong game, especially when it came to setting up some of these picks in the mid game. Hylissang could take it here if he doesn't want to risk it being picked up, but instead it is the Skarner takeaway on their side.
Fnatic don't want to have to deal with the power of that ultimate here again. They saw how effective it was against them last game. They'll try to utilize it for their own means here this time around. Of course, being able to combine the ultimates of both the Camille and Skarner means a lot of lockdown onto a single target. But one way to get somebody out of those situations, especially a Skarner pull, is utilizing the Tahm Kench. That's going to be locked in here now for the side of Royal Never Give Up.
I wonder what this means for junglers, because there could be more jungle bans because it's Karsa and not MLXG. The Zac is something we see pretty frequently into the Skarner if you don't fall behind. You have a lot of ability. The use of that Let's Bounce can certainly interrupt fights. Rise ban on the red side here. See what the counter pick is used for RNG, as we do see one jungle ban in the Olaf.
Yeah, and it's pretty fascinating that Trundle has not really been a thing in this draft here. Fnatic first picked it so many times during the tournament.
I think you and I, and most of the analysts have discussed the fact that Trundle priority has been a bit higher this time. Still a very strong champion. Do very powerful things in team fights, but early game, it's been a passenger too many times. I know I personally was calling for the Skarner, and the Skarner priority today, already night and day to anything we saw in the group stage games.
People definitely paying a lot of respect to the Scorpion thus far. We'll see if Fnatic wants to ban another jungler here with their last ban. 10 seconds to choose that one. In the meantime, worth pointing out that Royal Never Give Up banned both Ryze and Zoe, so they want to target Caps in this second part of the ban phase.
Forgot about the Aurelion Soul.
Yeah. Oh, baby.
It is still there, even with some of the roaming bans like Taliyah being removed. There's that Aurelion ban we talked about that could come in phase 2 from Fnatic, so they don't have to risk Xiaohu grabbing it. Kai'Sa gets his Zac. This is again what we talked about in the first game. He is the Zac and Skarner player on RNG's side.
And I really like the matchup into the Skarner. You already saw Peanut earlier this tournament pull the mechanic of, as the Impale is actually being cast, you can use the Let's Bounce to bait out the cooldown and get out.
And Reckless hovering the Pantheon again. We have to go all the way back to 2014.
4 years ago.
When we had All-Star in Paris, the entire crowd was yelling, what is your profession? And of course answering the classic 300 style, and that is why Reckless is hovering the Pantheon. It's not because he wants to play it, hopefully not at least.
Hopefully no Pantheon AD carry in MSI semifinals, but they are doing what the crowd wants to do. There's a reason that they're playing here, right? This is the hometown crowd. You've got to do what the crowd wants to do, and they will lock in the Janna for support.
There it is, baby.
And there, you called it, Deficio.
I mean, easiest prediction ever, because he will always have it ready.
But it's bold. They don't know what matchup is into it now. Because Let Me's largely been on tank duty, there's less of a chance that Kassadin, for example, could come in very strong lane into the Aurelion Soul. We'll see what RNG decide. Let Me can play the carries, but usually it's a tie on the domestic scene have been charged with those.
I mean, there's also things like a fist you can grab if you're feeling pretty crazy down in that mid lane and you want to really try and see if you can shut down Aurelion Soul. It is going to be the Ornn top lane.
If Zetia's in the lineup, top lane sub they could not bring to the tournament with only 6 players, then you think it's going to be a Vladimir top. Would have been very loaded with magic damage as well. Just going to be the Ornn, and it's a sort of lane matchup where if you can abuse those back timers, you get back again and again with the Aurelion Soul, regen through, the roam could happen.
Funny thing about that Ornn, even though we mentioned last game, it does have the 3rd highest pick ban rate of all champions so far at MSI 2018, sitting at an abysmal 36% win rate, so...
Because everyone picks
it. Everybody, exactly. When you are picked that much, you're on the bad teams and the good
I have to also blame Stark and Evos a little bit, because he grabbed it like 7 times and lost most of those games. But yeah,
a fair point.
The thing about Ornn is he's just the safest, and he's the best long-range engage you can get in the game. Now combine that with a Zac flying in as well. Last game, we talked about how RNG could dive Fnatic's backline and kill them with Vladimir and Irelia. This game, it is insane engage, setting up Xiaohu on this Vladimir to do exactly the same.
I mean, everyone's diving to Fisher. Both sides have crazy amounts of backline. The Camille, we're going down the backline as well. So this could certainly be feisty and very exciting once again.
I hope it lives up to the hype that game number 1 set us up for. If that's the bar, I just want it to be raised each and every game. I can only dream, but we'll see if they can manage to accomplish that lofty goal as we head into Summer's Rift for the 2nd time today.
Game number 2 here, and we do see an adaptation. Mentioned earlier, we really liked the response of Uzi to go for this Caitlyn into Ezreal, but that was a TP Caitlyn. Notice we do have Heal, the much more standard combat summoner, taking on Uzi, and the reason for that is they know that Aurelion Soul is packing up and going bot lane again and again. If you take a teleport, it's only going to be gets back to lane. They need the Heal to live.
And remember, speaking of needing it to live, last game they lost the early 2 versus 2 in bottom lane and gave up an early kill. The Heal able to prevent such a situation this time around.
Oh, we see another exciting thing.
Oh, baby.
Xiaohu is running Predator on this Vladimir here. There is so many ways for him now to always buff up his own movement speed and just get into the backline.
He's starting with the shoes too. He's ready to go. He's got Predator available at level 1. Take that, junglers, and ready to go with my roaming. We'll see what it means. It means he doesn't have Unsealed Spellbook. His side lane play will probably be limited, and no Ghost either, so he's relying on the Predator and the Shirelias to get into fight.
And I think based on last game, it's not too bad for him to not be able to go side lane very often and have teleport, because it's gonna be a massive A-ramp in the mid lane, and we have so many tools to engage on RNG's side. They will get that fight. Fnatic, just like last game, invades level 1 near the enemy red buff.
Decide to go for this one. They capture the Skarner Spire, which means Skarner at least does something at level 1. Very weak if you don't have that. But Broxah should be able to secure this for himself rather easily. Zac not that scary at level 1.
And we saw Zac get shut down when Cuz was playing this in the final game of Kingzone's group stage against Flash Wolves. And that was very much a team-wide plan and draft to shut down a jungler. I think Soul can certainly do some counter jungling and also pay some attention to the Zac himself, but it's not quite the Hawk shot and the Graves to invade consistently. Broxah still escapes with the enemy red.
Bobby just gonna accept that he only gets a couple of camps on his own side, and invading for enemy red buff is too risky. Cap with a decent start, running out of mana though on the Aurelion Soul. Still a very famous pick for him.
Very much so.
There's this joke in the EU office about how I always try to predict the Aurelion Soul, and it almost never happens, but he's always had it ready for the important games. It's always been one of those picks where you can't really prepare for it in the draft because you never know when he wants to play it, and this is a team that is down now, 1 game in a semifinal at MSI. This is the correct time for Cap to do it again.
And you can see the stats that he put up in that 1 game that he played versus RNG during the group stage of MSI. 5 KDA, 8 kills and assists in 15 minutes, 100% kill participation, 40% of the team's damage. A very strong performance on that champion.
And we return to the 3 things we identified as ways that RNG could be attacked. The roaming mid lane, of course, the prototype of that is the Aurelion Soul. Reason why we should also talk about something that wasn't included on that graphic. 4-0 and 4 was Caps at 20 minutes. He ruled the early game. They were able to shut down Xiaohu and roam to bot lane and get Uzi behind when they did play it against RNG.
But the one thing we also have to keep in mind, got to keep this down to earth, Fnatic ultimately did not emerge victorious from that game. They could not translate the early lead into a late game victory, which is the difference we want to see this time around from Fnatic. We want to see if Caps can find those leads and still get the win from them. As topside, they're making a very early 3-man dive here. Caps takes a lot of turret aggro, and they have to back away.
Yeah, the minion wave was not on the turret just yet. Meanwhile, bot lane, here's Karsa.
Bot lane is Hylissang, who may be in some trouble here. Karsa flashing backwards towards the minion wave, trying to get the stretching strikes. Fnatic get themselves out, as we're seeing more collapse now from Xiaohu. Remember, he's got the Predator on the Vladimir. Tries to come around, only gets a single unempowered transfusion onto Hylissang. They back away.
How often pre-4 minutes does everyone pack up and leave lane, go top or bot lane? Everyone's roaming around. That's exactly why the Predator comes in. He wants to be able to follow when Aurelion Soul pops over some walls.
We have to say the first Predator kind of sucked.
No, it's
like
it was not the greatest. It was not the greatest.
That was basically it. However, what we did get to see already is what we saw during the group stage when Whippo was on a carry. Caps and Broxah spend their time topside. They try and shut down Let Me. The goal around the Camille pick for Fnatic earlier was to have a split pusher that could actually finish the game in the side lane because she's so good at taking down these turrets. This is a new way for Fnatic to try and win, and that's kind of the thing that is fun about how they attack RNG. Is it bot side? Is it top lane? In this one, it's the top.
Well, remember, Whippo's Camille is up against the Vladimir of Xiaohu, and in the game that Fnatic played in the group stage versus Evos, it was Camille that could not beat the Vladimir in the late game now, as Karsa finds himself stuck under the turret, having to run away from yet another Fnatic attempt.
Now, of course, he farms slower than Askarna, but because he went for that gank bot side, he gave up Caps. He's still level 3 at the 5-minute mark into the game. But certainly slowing down the advance of the Zac.
That's going to be important here for Fnatic to keep track of Karsa's level. Bot lane might cancel a recall, and this Vladimir is here.
Oh, Xiaohu shows up at just the right time. You couldn't have done that better if you tried. First blood to RNG's mid lane.
Caps most likely expected Xiaohu to be back in base here. Did not communicate that he could be on his way to the bottom lane. He didn't even get to use the Predator, so we can't praise that one and say, oh, he surprised him with the speed. No, he just showed up over the blast zone.
And the Predator warning might have actually given more information and taken away from the play, but as you mentioned already, Fuzz, great coordination there from Ming and Xiaohu to pick up that all-important kill. And Let Me already showing a preview. Remember that Let Me, of our players on the Orin, loves to build for lane. Iceborne Gauntlet, Warmogs, a Catalyst. He very much builds to survive, as this is rewinding to Xiao, who's roam, never spotted, no Predator early marker. It's all about Ming knowing his exact timing. There it is.
Oh, just so well done and coordinated. Gets him the kill, makes it so he's got that advantage. Now, not only does he have the kill gold, he's up 10 CS over his opponent. Xiaohu's in a wonderful spot.
The man's never going to shop, apparently. He's a madman, sitting on 2,050 gold. Started with the boots and the refillable. Never gone back to base, and another reason why. It's opening up a nice CS lead over his opponent.
Gets the Empowered Transfusion down, decides to throw out the Hemo Blade. Going to be ignited. He could very well burn away from this. Xiaohu! The questionable play there.
Yeah, that was a very easy kill for Captain. He can go straight to top lane.
Top side now, Whippo taken down to 200 HP. Let me no level 6 available. This is critical. Broxa does have ultimate. Let me now just finds himself onto the ultimate, but they grab the kill anyway. Broxa doesn't even need the sting. Fnatic find another kill.
We talk about the fact that gold is unspent means that he's not really relevant in the lane. He walks up to trade, just burns to death because he doesn't have any beef behind his bones. The guy needs to actually go back to base and buy. Gets a nice shot for spot lane. Seeing the trades continue here. Bit of a level advantage for Uzi.
Caps more than happy to be donated that kill by Xiaohu earlier. Means that roaming that he did now puts him in a decent spot. He flashes forward into the waiting arms of that Vladimir. Broxa is nearby, but there's not much of a chance to do anything you would think. Caps getting himself away with the voice of flight. Incredibly played. And Fnatic lose 9.
Surely that was a missed click to flash that wave for Caps, but in the end he actually stays alive. Emil is coming bot lane.
TP bottom side. Can Whippo find what he's looking for here? Issues the ultimatum onto Ming, and that seals his fate. Reckless grabs the kill as Whippo wants to make it too. Uzi gets himself away with the 90 caliber neck.
Completely agree on your analysis of the mid lane. It was a flash in fear. Just saw the Zac coming in, went in one direction, the wrong one. They get out with 2 summoners being used, but bot lane, they use this Zac top side. They go for the deep teleport, and it pays off.
Whippo will lose a couple of minions. Top lane might be a full wave going down, but this game starts just like the first one. Non-stop fighting in every single lane. RNG put their focus on the bottom side. Fnatic put their focus on the top side. So if we just look at the trends here, 81 CS for Uzi and a BF sword. It's working at least to get him ahead from RNG side, but their top laner is going to fall behind.
Take another look at how this play happened. The TP shows up, and it's already too late for Ming.
The lane is pushed up, so it feels like he has a bit of extra time. Won't lose 2 minion waves with this play. They just go for the easy target. Uzi has heal, knows there's no way out. But the Tom Kench, the extra dive was never going to lead to a kill, but we return to live and see that 9 minutes that bot lane turret goes down for RNG.
Turret first blood is just more money in the pockets of Uzi, exactly where RNG wants it.
And last game, Captain Flowers, you showed us that when RNG gets the bot lane turret first, they win all their games.
Yep.
Well, they got it in the last game. They're getting in this one as well. So Uzi's gonna get fed, but top lane, Hylissang is here already.
Trying to collapse onto Let Me yet again. Ultimate already coming out. Let Me take it low. Hylissang taking the turret as long as he can. One more auto attack should do it. Whippo flashing forward. He's not able to find the damage. Whippo is so low. Let Me survives. And Fnatic's dive is a failure for now. They want to see if they can get anything off the back. This Predator going to be Pop Xiao, who wants to make this happen. Still has flash available here as well. Not going to go for it. He knows Broxa is right there. Cap's coming up now as well. And Fnatic, 4 men strong in the top side, means that RNG gets Drake on the other side of the map, but the push will now continue. Still looking to find this kill on to Xiaohu. Whippo taking low, the Ignite continuing to burn him away. He may just still go down. He will. The pull onto Xiaohu will not find the kill yet. Caps has to use the ulti to do it. It's 1-for-1 in the top lane.
Fnatic, they keep trying to force plays top lane, but Let Me played the first tower dive perfectly. Stayed alive, got out. Xiaohu trades 1-for-1, so Fnatic are investing so much into getting these kills. They didn't even get the turret down.
And the objective part is the part that we really have to draw our attention to, because RNG is already ahead on the scoreboard on that metric. Held the flash for a long time. We're going to get the replay here. This is the second part of the fight. We already had Let Me close to going down to start, but Ignite the Hemo Plague enough to take down Weak.
And it's so smart that he instantly pulls, because he knows, okay, I get the ult down and pull, and I can just keep dealing a bit of damage onto Whippo. If you don't do that instantly and save it for after the Skarner ult, then there's no chance Whippo actually dies here. So by playing it aggressive with his pool, Xiaohu secures a 1-for-1 and defended the turret.
Xiao, who's had some good moments so far this game on this Vladimir, now has the Shirelia's Reverie completed, so you know that that's going to make sure he can get in there towards those back lines like he wants to, like Let Me did in game number 1, as we move further towards the mid game.
It is important for us to note that Hylissang is on his Janna. It is not a pick he's famous for by any means, but he's tried to pull it out a few times during the split. Very mixed success overall, as he typically is the more aggressive support style. But that Janna ult can be key when it comes to peeling, because you will have the Vladimir and the Zac diving in. I just think this is a very hard game to execute a Janna on.
And I was going to follow up that point and basically echo that, Deficio. When do you Jan out? Your first thought is to stuff the Zac, and maybe a Q can do that. But the Ornn creates so much uncertainty in a fight. And between that, the Zac pops in, Predator, Vladimir shows up. It's very difficult to fully disengage RNG, and that's the struggle for Hylissang.
Hylissang played the Janna 3 times over the course of the regular spring split in 2018. Got 2 wins and a single loss. Now Cap's gonna be ganked in the mid lane though. It's Karsa showing up, looking to make this one happen. The ulti brings him right back into the turret. The Hemo Plague's already down, and they are gonna cash in. That dragon should be Vladimir food here in only a moment. The Sanguine Pool to shut him down. Broxah wants to try to make this a 1-for-1. Grabs the stun now, down onto his opponent. Manages to chain it into the ultimate. Excellent use of CC, and that evens it out.
And going 1-for-1 is actually decent there. The flash was about 5 seconds away from Caps to get out. He interrupts the elastic slingshot, but still flash up. Karsa's still able to shut him down. It ended up being 1-for-1. It doesn't really affect the mid lane because both the pushing champions are in the death chain.
But just like last game, Caps is the one getting early kills for Fnatic. Caps is the one playing it very well when it comes to the roams. And then RNG tried to shut him down with ganks. This Zac here, while he's only picked up 1 assist, Karsa's tried to be around his lanes when needed. It's just not really been about him.
One thing I want to remind viewers about Game 1 is in all the pandemonium, there were many times when Taliyah was on the roam, and there was a lot of kills onto Caps, and they never translated Olaf Taliyah into forward vision. They never really knew where Skarner was in game number 1, and he surprised them with his ganks many, many a time. In this game, deep vision is even more important to spot the Zac when he pops over from his Raptors, for example. Getting that vision down is so important, and let's see if Fnatic can actually get there, because again, 13 minutes, the vision's very shallow.
Yeah, and especially because Fnatic don't want to trade kills with RNG. Fnatic needs to snowball. We just talked about how hard it is for them to play team fights against these massive tanks, a ton of hard engage, and the Vladimir. So Fnatic needs to get ahead, not trade.
Well, let's see if the snowball can come in here in the bottom lane. Let me collapsed on. The damage comes through. Karsa's not there in time to make the save. Xiaohu coming around through the tri-brush here now. Fnatic needs to back themselves away. Predator emblems above their heads. Broxah going to be hit by the initial damage, but Fnatic disengages.
And that was the kind of trade Fnatic were looking for. They knew Vladimir was going to be late to the party because he cannot follow the Aurelian Soul. Go in, get 1 kill. Eventually you're going to get a turret as well. And then in this mid-game, keep playing aggressive.
But you look on the screen, what more did they get than a kill? They don't cement vision control over the enemy blue. They don't even have someone parked in the bot lane to push up the turrets. Caitlyn was able to get a shot in and go top side, so the Ezreal and Janna not contributing either. So it just ends up being kill gold, but doesn't advance their map position or even get those wards to spot the Zac like we discussed.
Caps on this Aurelian Soul. Rod of Ages completed. Making roams all over the place. Let's take another look at this one.
It's just a 3 versus 1. Play Let Me knows that he's going to be the target all game long. Tries to get the ult up to buy time, but obviously can't do anything to stay alive. But as you highlighted there, Papa Smithy, after the play, Fnatic can just go back to base and then return to the lane just like nothing happened.
I want to jump back to what we talked about earlier on Caps, the 1 game he played on Aurelian Soul at MSI this year. At 15 minutes, he had 8 combined kills and assists with 100% kill participation. This time around, he's at 5 out of 6. So still putting up some impressive numbers on that champion.
Struggle with that stat though, Flowers. They lost that game, and largely it was because they had this huge Aurelian Soul. We still had Reckless getting going on his champion, Tristana, I believe, at the time. And it looked like they could make a great Baron play. They had a great Baron setup team, but they just never shifted vision, never got the Baron started, and then Uzi showed up, and that was all she wrote with team fights. The team fight power of RNG is there in the drop and in the players, and for Fnatic, we're just not seeing them push forward.
And by RNG just being even in gold at 15 minutes, it's perfect for them. Knowing that scaling you just talked about, knowing the ability to execute late game, Fnatic, there's a top lane turret that's low that they can try and play around. They can go for another dive against Let Me with Aurelian Soul and Camille. but they need to start getting ahead of RNG or they're not going to win this game.
RNG with that bottom lane set up now in the top side. Fnatic doing the same since that one turret has fallen in the bottom lane. That's the only structure that's been felled by either team so far, and RNG is fine playing this scaling game. Whippo still just kind of going even against Let Me in this 1-versus-1. This isn't a Camille that's an unstoppable split push threat.
I'm sure if we could listen to the comms, it'd be calm it down, we're fine. If you're on the RNG side, Uzi's getting access to farm. He's always ahead of the clock. It used to be 10 CS a minute. We didn't Uzi scale for that.
There's a separate
but now they're actually attacking Let Me's lane.
Whippo in some trouble, flashing away from the second part of the Ornn ultimate. Karsa can't get in range for the second part of stretching strikes, which critically allows Whippo to escape.
And also Fnatic now know the jungler's bottom side. They took the Rift out. This is a good trade for Fnatic. Flash for it, potentially a big objective. Xiaohu's turret is also fairly low. If they can get a top lane turret down and get a 2,000 to 3,000 goal lead plus the map control, Fnatic can keep making picks.
Moving straight, they're on the front foot, knowing that Zach and Vladimir dealt with that turret in the mid lane. Turret very, very low. I think you got the number there, Flowers. But the top lane turret, that one's gonna go down.
Shelly got that turret in the mid lane to 200 HP, just barely misses out on taking that one off the map. We'll see Fnatic surely take that down rather soon. Only a couple of auto attacks should do it. Caps will get that right here. Put some more money in Fnatic pockets.
Somehow, the question of live or replay that Twitch chat always likes to talk about is getting there. It's feeling a lot like that earlier game when they played Aurelion Sol against RNG. They're building a gold lead. It's not 5,000, but it's getting there.
And as we highlighted earlier as well, it is a split pusher for Whippo on this Camille here. Once he gets 24's Ravenous Hydra, Let Me can't stop him in the side lane, and that means Fnatic can start trying to avoid team fights. If they know they can't win them, it is difficult against the amount of hard engage on RNG's side, but they can look at Whippo as the man who can win it in the side lane.
But I look at Vladimir, currently has Shurelia's Predator and a Banshee Veil, and I don't know how you stop this guy RSVPing. If he wants to get there, he will. Nature of Vladimir in team fights, even though both Vladimir and Aurelion Sol have a lot of AoE, Vladimir will always get it on the back line because he's so hard to peel away. Whereas Aurelion Sol's role in late game team fights, he can't even really be a peel for the AD carry because he dies so fast with his build.
Which is kind of what we saw when Caps played this earlier. The game where he did so well but wasn't able to secure the victory. It just seemed like he couldn't play an appropriate role. Now, it's RNG who are looking to make the play onto Fnatic that will not succeed, but they've got themselves in a position to look to take this Drake that's now live. They've already got one under the belt, looking to make it two. Full 5-man strong here for the LPL representatives. Fnatic want to stop this. Karsa down to about half HP. Ornn comes through. Cap's going to be knocked up into the air. Brox is still getting himself away. Skarner at full HP. Drake down to half. Broxton maintaining his position right on top of this. Skarner's fire is going to be captured. That could be pretty big. Got it. It's still going to be RNG who takes the objective away. Broxton having to flash out, looking to keep himself alive. Xiaohu on the front line, able to find some damage. Goes into the pool. RNG hiding themselves back now. It's Fnatic on the offensive. RNG trying to escape as Whippo goes off to the side, able to issue the ultimatum, finds the damage down onto the Zac. Let Me drops to Reckless, and Fnatic have found the fight. How much further will they take the momentum on this one? Broxton goes on a killing spree, grabbing the damage. Now down onto Karsa, 2 dead on the side of RNG. Can Fnatic find any more? Reckless still looking for it. Caps wants to make the play on the flank. Sanguine pull from Xiaohu. Gets gobbled up by Ming. Gonna be saved for now. Still himself away. He barely survives.
Oh, that one gets blocked as well here. We're not in the late game yet. RNG's team fight is not that scary at this point. Fnatic actually got the perfect setup because Let Me's ult was fairly wasted, and suddenly RNG didn't have a good way of reaching that Fnatic backline.
Expectations changes from here. Traditionally, Aurelion Sol goes the more utility items. Rylai's already a start, maybe even a Shurelya is coming in. Doesn't have the high AP totals. Late game, it's not late game like you mentioned, Deficio. And the zone control just went on. We have to mention, though, Karsa does start it off with the Baron steal.
He gets the steal here. Sad for him, not a Baron, but
Drake steal, close enough.
And Cloud is the same in NA as a Baron. This here, though, is the fight where, for Fnatic, Reckless is completely untouched in the entire fight because all the engages were either used on stealing a Drake or used on trying to knock off Caps.
Let Me It's not as tanky as going to be late game. The Zac tried to go out and just exit the fight on the right side, but Bwipo smartly realized he can get his man and take down the Zac. Then there's no front line, and Caps jumping over stopped Uzi from disengaging and got them more kills.
And look at the damage in that fight, over 8,000 between the two carries on the side of Fnatic, both just given so much opportunity to unload that damage. But now, the Baron is live. We're only just now cresting the 20-minute mark. For all the action that we've seen and all the attempted plays that we've seen so far this game, we're only this far into the game. So now, I want to see how these teams play around the Baron, because remember in game number 1, they danced around it for 5 minutes.
They did, and if you're a Fnatic, this is a good way for you to potentially force another fight on RNG while you are still strong. This Reckless Ezreal here, 24's tier upgraded. He's ready to take the fight against Uzi. Xiaohu is the main person you need to be scared of. Great first game, second game, also picking up kills on this Vladimir here. We talked about the Predator earlier, plus Shurelius. Like, he will get in the back line, but does he have enough damage this early on in the game to burn through the Janus shield and a Monsoon?
First thought is no one. You also asked the question of Caitlyn getting 3 auto attacks onto the Aurelion Sol when he tries to zone. That also right now is not going to be taking down the Aurelion Sol. Only just the single Zeal item and Infinity Edge complete. So there's still time. It's still probably 3 to 5 minutes where if you start the Baron and turn, get the right turn with the Camille, profit could be big for Fnatic.
Yeah, but also look at the Camille in the bot lane. We're getting a preview of what's going to happen later when she sits and split pushes. She took down the bot lane turret. Couple of hits on another turret with a Sheen and her Q proccing every single time. Like, these structures die very, very quickly. So RNG, they have to force a team fight to stop Bwipo from pushing.
And because Let Me was targeted, for once it's not built for lane. It's not Iceborne Gauntlet Warmo. It's going to be the Frozen Heart. Much more team fight utility. He's going to be able to take less strong trades as that inevitable march of the Camille happens. When that Trinity Force comes in, maybe there will be an inner turret and more rolling down for Fnatic in that lane.
And Bwipo's going back with a lot of money in the bank. 2,400 gold means Trinity Force now comes online. He can buy the Vampiric Scepter, working towards that Ravenous Hydra that we already talked about as well. And the timer keeps on ticking towards that split push monster, that inevitability. And remember, we've seen Bwipo succeed on this, even against the game that the tiebreaker that they played against Team Liquid, to make their way into where they are now. Fnatic had Bwipo on the gangplank, just causing trouble on the opposite end of the map from everyone else.
Now they have control around the Baron area. They have the stronger setup. We look at especially Reckless on this Ezreal. Will of course stack the second tier. He's sitting on 1,700 gold, so a lot for him as well next time he goes back.
To me, you need to chunk out one of Karsa or Xiaohu to actually start the Baron, because Karsa can get into the pit from comically far away. You can't usually stick vision all the way past the Raptor Brush to actually stop there from being any steal potential. So this area, currently owned by Fnatic, is very hard to stick control.
But look at the inventory of Karsa. The Kindle Gem with the Giant's Belt tells me he's going for a Warmog's armor soon, which is going to eliminate the possibility of having that poke him out win condition. Uzi gets a nice shot onto Reckless there with the power of the rapid fire cannon, but RNG is still on the back foot.
But Fnatic have the mid lane control, so they can go towards this lane here with Bwipo. Caps is sitting around. Brox is on his way. Let Me should not be chasing out for any kills here.
Let Me has already charged in. Doesn't get hit by the stun. Caps tries to get himself away from this one, but the counterattack comes out, and that's Caps caught out and beaten down. Throws out the Voice of Light, still not going to be enough, and Xiaohu takes the gold.
Oh, Fnatic still kept a bunch of members in the mid lane, and Let Me was like, yeah, I'm not taking this fight alone, everyone. I have Tahm Kench on his way, and then, yes, you can step forward. Good answer from RNG, and Fnatic tried to help Bwipo get the advantage instead of leaving him in the 1v1, and that just backfired.
It did seem like Caps was caught between two ideas. He had originally pulled out from going for the kill, then saw Let Me walk up, and the rest of the team were not on the same wavelengths. They abandoned the Aurelion Sol to die. A lot of time on the map now to clear vision. We see the replay here. Cap starts to walk up, and this is with a really important move.
Yeah, but Fnatic's bottom lane have plenty of time to start moving down before this fight even breaks out. But they want to kill another wave, and I think that just maybe surprises Caps that they're actually not ready to take a fight, and then he gets caught out.
The one more wave against Tahm Kench when the laning phase is ended can be so costly. See how it affects too much, because right now Bwipo's back up around that inner turret.
Right. The big thing here for Fnatic is the fact that although they lost their mid laner, there were no big stinging consequences. It didn't give up a Baron, it didn't give up another Drake. There wasn't anything that RNG could effectively translate that into immediately. So it's a lesser sin right now for Fnatic. We'll see how they continue to play this one. Still in control of the map for now. Still up about 4,000 gold. Still laying down vision in that enemy jungle, prepping around the Baron.
As long as they don't start the Baron, then RNG can keep this defensive stance around their own jungle. Just buy more time. Uzi's now on 3 items. There is enough armor on the side of Broxah, plus a Janna shield, that you can start the Baron as Fnatic and not take too much damage, and see if RNG are reacting in time. When RNG was this far down against the Flash Wolves in one of the group stage games, they did not react quick enough to a Baron being started. They lost it. That is still the window Fnatic are looking for.
And Caps is just trying to use ult over the wall to contest a red buff. They're no longer trying to stick super long range, engage, or look for these very deep wards here are Fnatic. So it is once again decreasing the tempo. We were looking at 22 minutes about how Fnatic will move their position forward. We're 26 minutes in now. There's that death cap. There's the second Zeal upgrade. The team fight situation here for Fnatic is taking a nosedive fast.
Will be able to find themselves Cloud Drake #1 to compete with the Drake that RNG has. That'll even up the move speed count between the teams. But it's like you said, Papa Smithy, going into this game, you wanted to see them be able to get far enough ahead. Is 4,000 gold at 27 minutes far enough ahead?
Only if you get the Baron. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to finish the game with this kind of gold lead. It's going to buy too much time for RNG to get their items. Another point is, Fnatic have not been able to control Drakes. And typically with compositions that want to get ahead early, you tend to rack up 3 to 4 Drakes on your side, and then the Elder Drake becomes the kind of last chance for your team to secure a big buff and then finish the game. But that's not going to be a big deal for Fnatic here.
It just feels in general, when they've been able to out-rotate and have 3 in the face of 1, sure, they've largely been able to execute. But when you have comps like this, usually incidentally, it's so much tabs on where the enemy is and what they're looking to do that the Drakes largely happen when the enemy is cross-mapping. In this game, that hasn't happened, and their control of the map is less than I'd expect with the comp they've dropped.
And that control isn't getting them the ability to choke their opponents out either. Look at the farm on Uzi, 354. He's averaging 12.5 CS a minute right now, just hanging out and farming. Whippo pushing down the bottom lane, takes out the tier 2.
And that is the counterpoint, is that Whippo has been launched far ahead. He's got some good items, but he hasn't been able to push up lanes. They do get that in a turret because of all the attention on left.
And Whippo can keep doing this. Question is, can he do it fast enough for him to actually take an in-hit before RNG gets a big fight? Fnatic are still in an okay spot as long as they can execute around this next Baron. They cannot afford to lose a fight and the Baron, then the game will go heavily in RNG's favor. So as long as they can continue around this objective and start it eventually and then win the following fight, it's okay.
Bottom side, let me call in some backup yet again. Ming comes in with the Abyssal Voyage, bringing Uzi along for the trip, and Whippo wants nothing to do with any of this. Tries to get himself away, but across the map, it's Baron, started up by Fnatic. Hylissang's going to keep the remaining members of RNG occupied, while Reckless, Broxah, and Caps do everything they can to burn this down. They've already got it down to about half, as the fight will continue over off the side. Whippo having to issue the ultimatum, trying to get himself away. He will fall, and the RNG counterattack begins. Into the pick goes Karsa. Baron going to be taken down below 1,000 HP, and Karsa steals away. Fnatic finds disaster as Letme grabs the kill onto Reckless. Uzi grabs the kill onto Broxah. Fnatic have already lost 3 and the biggest objective on the map. Caps steps onto the trap as he tries to continue running, but RNG have found such a huge success here. Letme wants to chase down Hylissang, should be able to hopefully bring him down for RNG's sake, but they've got the push already mounting here in the mid lane. Hylissang still trying to run away. The knock-up not going to find the mark. Here comes Tom Kench. Tongue lash out of the shrubbery. The knockback from Hylissang wants to flash over the wall, gets devoured up instead, and Ming grabs the kill while mid lane the tier 2 falls to the siege.
The acid test, the breaking point of this game was, could Fnatic turn Aurelion Soul and some smart roams into a Baron? We evaluated it for 10 minutes as they had control, but not enough to actually start the objective. They're forced into an objective start. They're not able to take it down. They can't keep Karsa out of the pit. Baron goes to RNG, and sadly now, the chief amount of momentum at 30 minutes.
Yeah, we kept giving them more chances. Okay, yes, you're delaying it a bit, but as long as you can get the Baron, there is a good chance for you. But Let's see the play. Let's remind everyone that you can use Aurelion Sol ulti, Janna ult, Janna Hurricane, these kind of abilities to try and deny Karsa from getting in. But Hylissang is on the other side of the Baron pit for now, and then Whippo gets caught out.
Yeah, Whippo was, of course, still running. Baron is being burned as all of this is happening. They don't fully pull off it. It's down to 2,600. That's when the ulti is used by the Aurelion Sol. It doesn't keep Karsa out of the pit.
Yeah, everyone steps away as well when Xiaohu shows up. You are looking at a Vladimir on 3 items and you're in a Baron pit. So naturally you get very scared. And in the end, Fnatic took the 50-50 smite. Brox has been winning some of those, but not this one.
You could see the frustration on his face there. Fnatic had a couple of amazing smite steals of their own during group stage play, but the smite giveth and the smite taketh. And now it's taken them into a spot where even though they've controlled so much of the game, RNG is once again behind the wheel.
And if this game somehow extends to a second Baron, if the game doesn't end by then, consider that RNG have 2 Warmogs tanks that can shrug off Baron damage and peel again and again. That wasn't Fnatic's equation. They don't have Warmog. They have much more squishy damage focus or target acquisition tanks in the Skarner. So the Baron dance for RNG is much simpler when we get to that point.
Fnatic are trying something here. They're sending Cap to the lane of Whippo, but he realized, okay, nothing is happening. And RNG, of course, with the Baron buff, can just push straight down the base.
Yeah, we call this the piggyback strategy in the LCK, where you bring your mid laner and try to crash a turret and an inhibitor as the enemy goes. But with Caitlyn going for a siege, you can see already a lot of damage done to that turret.
Bottom side, Whippo gets collapsed on. Let Me and Xiaohu working together to burn him away without that side lane threat. It's now Fnatic looking to make the play onto the remaining members of RNG, but TP comes in. Karsa still looking to make the play, tries to use the ulti, instead going to be ulted back by Broxa. The Bloblets are in place, they're in the middle of the team, and Reckless grabs the kill onto that enemy. Uzi barely kept alive by me.
They can chase though, Reckless red buff.
Reckless does manage to find himself a double, wants to make it a triple. Broxa gets the chilling smite down. Uzi tries to get himself away from this, but more damage coming in from Reckless. Wants to go forward a little bit further, needs another arcane shift into a mystic shot. And the triple kill for the AD carry.
RNG sent back their mid laner to kill Whippo. Suddenly, there are 3 members only of RNG pushing for that top lane inhib, and Fnatic, they realized they just charge straight at them.
First communication lapse in the series also for Karsa, who goes in to buy time. He dies and then collapse on point from Fnatic, able to jump over the walls with the Aurelion Sol. And this is a sort of gold injection Fnatic was looking for.
And we have this Ezreal here with the double tier. That is a strong build now in the late game. Reckless getting the kills. He's the person who really wants to step up and be the big carry against RNG.
Vladimir invested into this one on the minimap, or picture-in-picture, we can see the dragon was picked up. Whippo was actually just taken down, but this is the cross-map we're talking about. Karsa's option, where is he going with that slingshot? He goes into the team, burned down very easily because the Impale is there, and RNG don't realize early enough that they needed to get up much faster.
And also it's Ornn without ulti showing up, not really able to add any value, so RNG, by creating an aggressive play on their own, they actually lose track of what's happening and they get punished.
And the chase down is cemented by the fact that with this build, Trinity Force into the Ceres Embrace is exactly 40% CDR, probably has the 5% also coming in from the runes. He has chase for days. The short cooldown on the arcane shift, so nicely executed by Fnatic.
You can see, though, despite the tragedy that just befell them at the end, RNG still got a lot of money out of that Baron. Over 6,000 gold in total. Brings this game to dead even. 61,000 to 61,000. Drakes are identical even. This could go either way.
It could. Definitely Fnatic finds a way back in this game here after losing that Baron. Reckless on this Ezreal, hitting the turrets.
Let's see if RNG can hold. It's the mid lane inhibitor turret that finds itself dropping very rapidly and already disintegrated. Now by the side of Fnatic, the Ornn ultimate comes through, finds its way on multiple members. Hylissang knocked up into the air, immediately killed. Caps tries to escape. Little by little, they whittle away at the health. The redemption comes through, but the Zhonya's is going to block it. A double kill over to the side of Xiaohu as Letmead continues to hold the line against Whippo. He wants to get in, take down that inhibitor turret, go for the inhibitors themselves. Whippo's trying to provide a threat, but RNG is pushing straight to the base instead. All they need is for Letmead to hold the line here at the Nexus. Broxa wants to try to defend the base. It's a big push from RNG coming through the middle lane. They've got one minion, and if they protect it, the backdoor bonuses will not be available. RNG down the mid lane have the turret already going for the inhibitor itself. Uzi putting the auto attacks into this one, should be able to find it. Whippo getting himself back from that bottom side.
And they get the 2-for-1 special here, Flowers. That's the question they packed up, ignored. The Camille taking down one inhibitor. They get the turret, but they don't actually cement a second inhibitor.
They know Baron is spawning, man. Baron is spawning about 20 seconds. You don't want to stay too long in the enemy base and then be caught with your pants down. They're picking straight for it.
Caps is alive. There's no control wards for RNG to drop just a single ward, as you can see. So their setup is not going to stifle Fnatic.
Oh, he gets interrupted.
Karsa makes it over the wall. The tornado not quite in place to interrupt him beforehand. Could have been a big pick there for Fnatic.
But that was the important thing for RNG by trying to step away, was you get a chance to go back, spend your goal, and then get ready for a Baron fight. Karsa is still around, didn't get to recall just yet. Now only sitting on 700 gold, and he has his tank item, so he doesn't really care too much.
With a bit of breathing room, I want to identify that early in the game we talked about expectations. Okay, even gold in the late game, it's going to be RNG winning a 5v5. Whippo can make it not a true 5v5 with his split push. That's the pandemonium they need. But now Whippo's alone, and we see the Vladimir show up again.
Whippo finds himself caught in the 1 versus 2, gets himself away. A fantastic escape from Fnatic.
Really important he stays alive. RNG cannot just instantly rush towards the Baron.
And Whippo must keep split pushing to stop it just being on ult into Vladimir, Predator, into kill. He can do so much work in the side lane, and that's why we respect the Fnatic still has a chance.
We still have about 10 seconds on Let Me's teleport. In case Fnatic starts the Baron instantly, he can't join fast enough, and he doesn't have the ult. They can actually go for this and try and bait a team fight, but they're stepping away. I'm not sure if they're 100% tracking the TP on the Ornn. Whippo, though, continues in that side lane. Fnatic really wants him to just stick to the 1v1. If they can force RNG to the Baron with everyone else, Whippo can start killing Nexus turrets.
Play the Ruin King, double tier upgrades. How fast can Fnatic burn the Baron? And inevitably we see Xiaohu do exactly this.
Xiaohu again looking for Whippo, wants to stop this split push. Fnatic burning the Baron down rather rapidly. Whippo with another fantastic escape. RNG moving into position, looking to stop Fnatic. TP into the pit from Let Me. Broxah still hanging around. Baron down to 3k HP. Karsa wants to come over the wall, channels the slingshot, makes his way into the river. Baron health resetting now, putting us back to an even state.
Whippo stayed alive, but he's now in the top lane, so he's not a threat against the Nexus turret bot lane unless he TPs in. That means RNG can start the Baron and look for a team fight.
RNG know they have to go right now. They're down with the teleport advantage. It's Karsa going in, looking to engage right on the enemy team. Broxah's already going to be taken down. No, Spike's still down. RNG just going to make something happen. Whippo split pushing into the bottom lane now as well. RNG need to finish this one off. They need to do it rapidly. Secured by Uzi of all people. As now they look to see what else they can find. Baron buffs trying to be used. Whippo onto the Nexus turret. They're going to find one, looking to find 2. RNG has to get back. Turret's going to be taken very low. Whippo still trying to escape. Gets himself out with a hook shot. As RNG get one objective and Fnatic get another.
Okay, they're getting things, but they give up on the Baron. They know that if RNG control the pit with their double wall marks, they can turn and get a lot. They don't quite make it a naked Nexus. They can't take down both the Nexus turrets. They get close.
Well, we keep seeing why Fnatic want to play this Camille, why they value the ability to take down structures so quickly so you can keep that split pusher as a win condition. EVOS earlier in the side groups that did this to Fnatic with a Camille, and they're trying to do it to RNG.
They're learning from what works so well against them. Ultimately, remember though, Fnatic did defeat the Camille split push, and it was a Vladimir that stopped it. If Xiaohu can do the same, that could end Fnatic's win condition, but now they found the collapse onto that very same pick. Xiaohu nearly gonna be dropped down, does keep himself alive just barely, but it's a big pick from Fnatic. They will end up being able to find that one. Hylissang now dropping. RNG with the counterattack, that's Uzi free firing, remember. 6 items on both AD carries. Whippo looking to go for the base. He wants to end this game. Can he find it? No minions in the base just yet. Cap will come around and help him. Uzi is here. Plenty of damage available for this Caitlyn. Let me flashing forward, grabbing the knockup down onto Whippo. GA is going to be procced. And that is huge. Caitlyn so good against Guardian Angels. You proc the trap, you prime it up, you shoot him down. As
critical
Fnatic
right
goes into the Elder Drake. RNG now again having yet another problem to answer. Fnatic is so high tempo, but Karsa will again spike the objective away.
Karsa Karsa coming into the team, unexpected that he would even play today, gets 2 crucial smites. I wondered about the Baron. Do they just roll the dice on 50-50? They didn't. Eventually, Karsa gets it. This time they try the 50-50, and Karsa gets it again.
And now they're looking at that base here. There's no TP from Whippo. There's no GA. That last Nexus turret is still standing there. There's no way for him to reach that base unnoticed. RNG with a double buffed up team can move down towards Fnatic.
This is the uber buff. Baron plus Elder Drake makes this RNG squad incredibly intimidating. 1 inhibitor down now, moving towards the top lane to find number 2. 5 men strong. Xiaohu hanging out around behind everyone else. He could come in on that flank very easily. 2 inhibitors down now for RNG.
Be a mistake to contest this 5v5, in my opinion, especially with the buffs rolled in to muddy the waters further. They need to recreate a split push once again, but that split push is a teleport cooldown and maybe even a Guardian Angel away from Whippo.
RNG continue the push down the mid lane, trying to siege up this Nexus and end this game. Nexus turret number 1 already shot down by Uzi. Fnatic have to make the call on where, when, how they want to defend this, because time will run out if they don't. RNG waiting on those minion waves from both top and middle to come with them so they can continue this push. Caps moves forward.
Rolling chants from the Parisian crowd. Where's the Alamo? Seems to be this turret.
Brox are going to be interrupted now. Brox are dragging Karsa right back into the fight. Karsa trying to find the ulti, bringing Brox right back into the lines of RNG. Can they find the damage? Brox are barely going to be getting himself away. Karsa takes the Uzi brought down. Barely goes down. Has to resurrect from the GA. Fnatic are going to hold the line for now. Brox drops first. Xiaohu gets the kill on that one. He should fall here. Reckless nearly brought down. Not going to be Hylissang with the flash to keep the AD carry alive. But RNG is just too much. 5 man strong, still in the base. They'll take down Fnatic for a second time. Hylissang falls in the fountain. Whippo can't do it. And RNG will take us to match point.
RNG's late game. They're team fighting. It's too much for Fnatic at the moment. That Baron play, we gotta go back to 28 minutes. Fnatic had the lead. They were setting up. They were ready with a split pusher in the side lane. They were ready to execute a Baron, and Karsa steals it. And suddenly, RNG starts winning.
Fnatic's strong early game is getting them so near, but not far enough to get safe Barons. And then the team fighting coming through from RNG, as we all know, is too much in the late game. They're drafting for it. They're giving up early game advantages, but never that early game Baron that might actually kill a game.
The Baron steal from Karsa, huge. The Elder Drake steal towards the end of the game, also massive. His smites came in so clutch to provide RNG that edge that tipped the game in their favor.
Yeah, they got so many ways back, and suddenly they could actually stop Whippo in that side lane because they could send multiple members without losing anything big on the map. It was close. Like, Fnatic are showing creativity in these games, and they're showing with a rookie top laner that he can actually split push almost all the way to a Nexus, but they need to execute properly around things like Baron.
I just love how Fnatic's play is like a greatest hits of all the early game strategies tried by different teams, including themselves, this tournament. Nothing enough to actually penetrate and get that first victory, but so close.
Well, to help us break down how RNG took Game 2, we're now going to send things back over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Another nail-biter of a game, but Karsa stealing the game back from Fnatic to push the series to 2-0 in favor of RNG.
And there was a taste of it at All-Stars, but it breaks down like this. If Karsa is in the pit, he is 100% going to get that objective. You must lock him out of it.
But I also just think not like this, because they have a self-suppressioning jungler. If Skarner just ults at 2,000 health and everyone bursts, it doesn't matter how good you are at smiting. You're not allowed to press the button during suppression, and the fact that Fnatic lost 2 major objectives like that is a tilter.
That was a heartbreaking game to watch. Fnatic
He's
had,
like, ah.
It was just, there were so many things that Fnatic did well, yet there are so many things that went wrong for them as well. And I think, like, we just kind of have to start in the early game, because that's where I felt like we saw a lot of what Fnatic did well, in particular in the middle lane from Aurelion Sol. The fact that Caps gets himself a comfort champion and he has so much early game impact, this is what we wanted to see from game 1 in his Dalia, but he executed upon it properly in game 2.
Now, the only complaint that I have about this, because I agree with you, I want caps on playmakers, is I don't want it to be top lane. You can see this repeatedly. It's on Let Me who they're attempting to dive. It's on the delayed invade on Karsa's red buff on top side. Why aren't they invading on the bottom side to make sure that they split the map, that Reckless and Hylissing are able to have an advantage in the 2v2, and they don't have a tower dropping at 9 minutes in the game?
I mean, the second time that Caps has played Aurelion Sol here, the second time he's done a lot of work in the early game to pick up kills and hand advantages to those side laners, but the second time, they don't come away with a victory.
Yeah, and at this point, there could be a little bit of a mental block for Fnatic against this team, because you say yes, okay, you want to be able to get Reckless ahead. Reckless actually did get very fed in that game. At one point, he was 5-1. And the fact that he did gank Orange so often set up Whipple's Camille to be an unmatchable split pusher. So I think if you're game planning as Fnatic right now, you won that game plan, game 2. That do not change from that, because I think they proved that it can work. They just have to execute around the Baron steals. They did so much good in that game that is tragic.
So much went right, and then one thing goes wrong. A huge Baron steal coming up for RNG from the hands of Karsa. Of course, as you mentioned, Jap, there probably were a few things Fnatic could have done here.
And the big thing here is that Fnatic, they basically just want to utilize the Camille up in the side lane to help, you know, play off on the 1-4 composition that they do have. Instead, they commit to it. He is suppressed right now. The moment he comes out of it, instant smite, instant secure from Karsa.
So the thought was there, the execution was off in the idea.
Yeah, and the Vladimir was insanely disruptive right there. If he doesn't go on Reckless, Reckless doesn't fall back, he damages the Baron. Reckless should have actually damaged the Baron. I blame the bottom lane for that Baron steal, because that was where Broxah was pulling off the suppressed 2k health. The burst just didn't come through from the team.
But here's my issue right now. Even if Fnatic do manage to break RNG, which they keep running into this brick wall, they continuously are getting these kill leads, these gold leads, running away with early games. And the fans will be like, Fnatic, these games are so close. But the thing is you haven't forced RNG to change their game strategy. RNG go backstage and say, let's run it back. Let's continue to play late game, because they can't beat us hard enough in the early game for it to matter.
And the irony of all this is Fnatic, in their final versus G2, drafted compositions that allowed them to scale to late game because they knew that their opposition G2 could not close. RNG are effectively doing the same thing, because they're saying, you don't know how to end these games.
Right.
You're getting kill leads multiple times, you're getting gold leads, objective leads, yet when it comes down to it, you cannot take our Nexus.
So that's what I want to dive into. Where is the breakdown? Because in 3 out of 4 games against RNG, Fnatic has had a kill lead against them at 15 minutes, suggesting again that they do have ways to find advantages and gain gold early. The translation to a victory is not there. So where is the breakdown for Fnatic in that mid game?
For me, this is systematic of their vision. We've talked about not only are they dying isolated on their side lanes, but also they're not seeing these pincer maneuvers when the team fight sets up and RNG are finding these deep backline flanks. So that doesn't always point towards Hilly, but it points towards the team holistically. They're unable to acquire the correct information to play side lanes effectively and the correct information to protect themselves when they do group up for these 5v5s.
I feel a large part of it as well is the fact that Fnatic seem to be crumbling under the pressure. They had Whippo doing a fantastic job on a side lane. They just had to be patient, and they had to just force RNG to be the ones under pressure, yet they weren't. RNG in every Baron situation, every 10 situation, felt like they were the ones in control. And every time Fnatic tried to play towards the side lane or play towards Baron, it was constantly RNG with the answer and shutting them down.
Yeah, and I also think there's a mentality difference between these two teams, even just looking at the starting rosters. Karsa played 1 of the 11 group stage games, and he started 2 games here and was very far behind in this game. If RNG loses this, they have a lot to fall back on. They think, all right, we'll change our pick and ban strategy, we can switch sides, we'll make sure Uzi has a stronger laning matchup and AD carry that doesn't turn on as fast. Like, they're still at step 0.5 of how good they can be, whereas I think Fnatic's trying to pull out all the stops and still falling short.
Let's look forward then. Fnatic has to put 3 together in a row here. MLXG will be coming in for game 3. RNG has also elected to remain on red side once again. And so here's what I want to take a look at. We've got 2 games in a row in which they've played close. Is this mental boom 1 for Fnatic? If not, how do you come back from this? Because I would posit this question. Is Fnatic playing the best League of Legends today that they've played all MSI?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, so you're playing the best version of yourselves that you've played at a tournament, and yet you've suffered back-to-back losses in a best-of-5. It seems like there's no source of recourse.
Yeah, the amount of criticism that would fall on Fnatic if they still first picked the Ezreal, went for a roaming mid laner, and basically pulled out the same strategy, I think is too high, and conventional wisdom would tell you to change. But it also depends on how much faith they have in Broxah and how much faith Broxah has in himself, because losing 2 smites, if he gets one of those smites, they are 1-1 right now, and it's RNG who should be forced to adapt. And I think you see that by the fact that they subbed out their jungler. So this is an instance where you actually do want to run it back if you're Fnatic and do the same thing for a 3rd time in a row.
That said, I do want them to change it to level 1. So that's twice now that they've done a delay evade on Karsa's red buff. If they retain red side, which I believe you said that they did.
RNG retains red side.
Why not just draft a level 1 composition, throw a hammer into the works, and just say that we're going to play early game, and if you want to invade this red buff, guess what? We have a plan waiting for you.
Does MLXG coming in changes Fnatic's draft strategy or attack strategy in general?
They play very different champions.
Yes.
That's exactly what.
I think that right now a lot of the focus does seem to be more towards the bot lane rather than the jungle. I think we'll still see a high priority on things like the Skarner, but I think that could be one of the reasons for the change, because they want to fall back on more of an aggressive jungler from MLXG rather than the safe kind of engaged jungler that we're seeing from Karsa. I know we've been talking a lot about Fnatic, and I just want to take this quick moment to talk about how well and how good RNG are doing in terms of like not only team fighting, but also just playing the map. Their vision control is spectacular. They're making it extremely difficult for Fnatic to close out these games, even though they're making a lot of individual mistakes. And coming into it, we all pegged RNG as the favorites, and I think these games have demonstrated like that they are a cut above Fnatic so far in what we've seen.
Well, the 1 seed is out to a sweet lead at 2-0, and as the games continue to ramp up, a reminder that Conqueror Varus bundle contributes to the MSI prize pool. To raise the stakes this MSI, pick up your skin bundle in the client store today. Now, if you need more Conqueror Varus swag, make sure to check out the 2018 MSI long sleeve available on merch.riotgames.com right now. We're stepping away when we return. It's Game 3 of Fnatic versus RNG.
Karsa's level, bot lane might cancel a recall, and this Vladimir's here.
Oh, Xiaohu shows up at just the right time. RNG trying to escape as Whippo goes off the side, able to issue the ultimatum, finds the damage down onto the Zac. Let me drops to Reckless, and Fnatic have found the fight. Into the pit goes Karsa. Baron going to be taken down below 1,000 HP, and Karsa steals it away. Fnatic finds disaster. Having yet another problem to answer. Fnatic is so high tempo, but Karsa will again spike the objective away. But RNG is just too much. 5-man strong, still in the base. They'll take down Fnatic for a 2nd time.
Predator, proud partner and official monitor provider.
Hello and welcome back to Game 3 of this semifinal series, where RNG is one game away from advancing to Sunday's finals. So far, we've seen some incredible picks and plays from these pros, and we want to hear from you at home. Tweet us using hashtag MSI2018 and let us know what pick you think has been the most impactful in this series, and we'll cover it during your responses on MSI tonight. But we have at least one more game of picks to come and another player to consider, with MLXG coming in for RNG in Game 3.
I know we were surprised, right, that he wasn't starting the series. It seemed to make sense that in a best-of-5 you'd start MLXG, go with Karsa. The peanut blank synergy happened last year. Here so far, I think Karsa's been very, very impressive in these games where it's all been about RNG losing the minimum. They have been the shield to the sword of Fnatic, which has been trying to actually run them through. But so far, they get to a point, but can't actually get the kill.
Yeah, I think with MLXG, we might get a bit more punch in the early game from RNG side. He is a much more aggressive jungler, and very hard to predict exactly what he's going to do, but he is still a very risky player to use, because Fnatic have shown they can definitely fight early and they can punish him.
Look, I think he's someone who's going to be on the stage, whether it's against Flash Rules or Kingzone in 2 days' time, if they are to make the final. They're 2-0 up. This is the right time to blood him in front of this Paris crowd, and then judge again when it comes to Sunday.
Exactly what I was thinking. When you're up 2-0 in a best-of-5, you have a little bit of leeway that you can experiment with and switch those strategies up.
Now, RNG, they choose red side. So 3 games of Fnatic on the blue side. With MLXG in the lineup, do note that Skarner and Zac aren't considered his picks. Those are the only 2 junglers that RNG have played with so far this series.
But when we're talking about picks and what matters, Fnatic knows exactly what they care about during the bans. Kai'Sa and Karma banned away again, but the Morgana will be changed out for Vladimir this time.
And let's see what RNG want to do in this pick and ban phase, because they just banned a GP to then follow with Camille. So they're basically saying, okay, Whippo, last game you actually played well. Fnatic understood. Camp Whippo early so he gets ahead on a split pusher. They want to remove that. These are the 2 main carry picks for him, and now it might just be tank versus tank, which is RNG's favorite.
And when I see the Gangplank ban in particular, champion that has fallen through picks and bans a couple of times this tournament, I wonder, does that mean they want to say, take a Shen side of an Ornn matchup, or even prioritize
early
Shen?
Ornn
does very much struggle. The Ornn definitely makes sense anyway, but they basically guaranteed one great tank. If Ornn was taken, they could play Shen. They can just go for a blind Ornn and be very happy.
There's one pick I want to mention now, which is not a traditional split pusher like Camille, and Camille is Singed.
Okay.
It is a champion that Whippo in the past, not on the professional scene, has actually been kind of known for and played a lot. And it is something you can grab against some of these blind pick tanks if you want a champion that, again, is super hard to play against in the early to mid game.
Definitely one that was on a lot of people's lips. Played a lot in solo queue. Definitely rising up and can get you the sort of priority that's the same as invading the enemy jungle, because he proxies the wave, goes behind the turret, gets wards down, and can profit.
Well, we know that Letme, of course, is a great Ornn player, and RNG's favorite playstyle is Letme on a massive tank where he can engage. So by, again, removing the split pushers, they're hoping it's just tank versus tank, like Cho'Gath for Sion versus Ornn.
And if he's abandoned, he'll show up, he'll throw out an ult, he'll be relevant however many kills. They found 3 kills onto him in the early game of game number 2. It did not matter.
Tell you what, boys, these teams are looking awfully similar to what we saw in game number 2 so far. And there it is, the prediction from
Sure enough times to Fishio, it has to come true.
This dude is hot. He is on fire today, predicting the Aurelion Soul, now the Singed.
I want to give some credit to Papa Smithy as well, because we were sitting before the tournament started and thinking about potential surprise picks. And Singed was one of them, simply because he is so good against a lot of these tanks that gets locked in.
And the whispers about Scrims also was that Singed was seeing play, but it never seemed stage ready for anyone. They look for a different card, a different unlikely factor. They find the Singed, and when the game starts, we'll be able to talk a lot about what Singed provides. There's actually much more than is apparent on first glance.
I think Fnatic, they were probably ready for RNG to ban it second facing as they grab it this early on in the draft. But already know the matchup on top side, MLXG, he gets an Olaf. So we talked about how bringing him on could mean a little bit more aggression from RNG in the early game. And we know that's how Fnatic are already playing the game. He's trying to do that on Olaf.
And our first sightings of Olaf were into a matchup like Skarner, where he can disregard things like the Impale and trade up in a lot of invasion scenarios. A lot has changed since then. Skarner's gone in and out of the meta. Seeing a lot more of him today. But if MLXG's on form, you can do a lot with the Olaf.
So they banned the Aurelion Soul, but Talia is still available in the draft here. So if Caps want to stick to the roaming style, there is options.
And they do decide to ban out the Irelia from the side of Fnatic. Remember, that's what RNG played against them in game number 1 when they had that Talia. And they'll ban away the Morgana that was previously the round 1 ban. It was more important this time to get rid of the Vladimir, but Morg's still important enough to keep that away from protecting Uzi.
The safety in the draft still is RNG, having to wait for Fnatic to round out the draft. They return to the Rise. It's gone down in priority as this tournament has gone on.
But just give me Talia here. Push in, roam up to Sinj's side, and then once you feel like, okay, now Sinj can actually sit behind the turret, you can play on the bottom side. And when Sinj is left alone, he's so hard to deal with. I think Talia would still be the smartest pick for Fnatic.
Talia Singed is just the worst day in the life of MLXG when it comes to actually getting anything going. It's going to happen. It's going to be locked in here. And if the early game goes to ban, if there isn't a crazy level 1 that really throws a spanner into the works for Fnatic, watch and track MLXG. He had bad timing against Peanut. It could actually be worse here in this game.
1 pick left for the LPL representatives. They know they're up against Braum and Ezreal in the bottom lane. They know they've got the Caitlyn yet again. What do they complement it with? And it looks like, once again, the saving power of the Tahm Kench is the call.
Yeah, I don't think they care too much about using the Devour here to stop a single ability. It's more the Tahm Kench ulti that is huge, because we know Fnatic are playing, you know, multiple lanes. They're flying around the map, and Tahm Kench ult was used very well by Ming beforehand to try and match these aggressive plays.
Small fun interaction. We don't often see Sinj too much in team fights. I think this will be a pressure game. It won't be about the 5v5. If the Devour comes onto a target and you fling back the Tahm Kench, you get 2-for-1 special. So that's going to be one to track as the team fights do start.
This could be a very interesting game indeed, with that Singed pick coming out. Also getting to see MLXG show up. We've already talked about how he can be very aggressive and very unpredictable. But that could also be a win condition for Fnatic. If you can predict the unpredictable and shut him down in the early game, maybe that's how you get a big enough lead to win.
Yeah, the last 2 games we have highlighted how RNG's late game team fight is basically unstoppable if you look at the compositions. So it's made it very hard for Fnatic if they ever got to the late game 5-on-5s. I think the current draft, while it is still late game, that is fantastic for RNG, it is easier, air quotes, easier to deal with for Fnatic.
The 70-30 of game 1 and 2 has been reined in. 55-60 still for RNG, but not night and day like we saw with those earlier games.
For Fnatic, you've got to make sure that you're still maintaining that strong mental state here as well. We saw in the player cams last game, after losing those Smite fights, Broxah seemed frustrated. At the end of the game, as the Nexus was falling, it was Reckless who seemed a bit flustered. As long as Fnatic can keep their heads on straight and make sure they're coming into this game ready to rock, there's still the possibility of the reverse sweep.
Yeah, and as long as Fnatic keep drafting roaming mid laners, I feel confident in saying that Fnatic know they can win with this style, because it's execution that where it goes wrong. It is not the draft, and I'm glad that Fnatic keeps sticking to it, and they're probably going to play aggressive again.
While we won't talk much about the mega adhesive, that Sinj W to Goo, until we get to the late game team fights. The first time I became a believer of the semi-rework Sinj was Cloud9 when they played it at Worlds, going for the grounded effect of the Goo into the Orianna shockwave and guaranteeing the shockwave. The seismic shove play here from Caps has a similar interaction and could be oh so pivotal.
I mean, if memory serves correct, Sinj is one of the only 2 sources of grounding in the game, along with Cassiopeia's Miasma, so it's something that a lot of the time you aren't expecting just from that slowing puddle. We'll see how effective Bwipo can be with it this time around.
Yeah, there's so much pick potential because of it. You already had the knockback from Talia. There's a Skarner ult from Broxah as well. Like, you're gonna get pulled really far back if you're caught out by Fling, and then a Skarner ult, and then Talia. Like,
you're going on vacation.
At some point, your team is just on the other side of the map, and there's nothing they can do to save you. So there's a lot of pick potential from Fnatic, and I feel like we've said this every game, but if Caps can roam from his mid lane and get his team ahead, Fnatic can start snowballing very hard.
2 games in a row, the sword has been matched by a stronger shield. Even though the champions changed the game plan, the essence of this game remains the same. Let's see if the sword can actually get the job done in game number 3.
Well, RNG threw their shield away when they subbed in MLXG and put on a 2-handed sword instead. They're like, let's go.
It's a bigger sword. That's how you fight a sword sometimes. That's the MLXG way of doing it. Bottom side Reckless getting aggressive early on here with Hylissang. Ignite down onto Uzi. Not quite enough damage to finish him off, but Fnatic showing no fear early on in this bottom lane.
I can respect that. He's going for the lane control, the aggressive in. Ignite. Notice it is heal Ignite once again. 3 games of Ezreal. No sign of the teleport Ezreal from Reckless.
So good towards the top lane here. One of the reasons Singed works so well against a lot of these tanks is they don't have any kill pressure against him. He gets
on a mission.
Yeah, he walks, but oh, MLXG is actually up here.
For once.
He's on a mission, but he's running right next to the enemy jungler.
MLXG doesn't care. He doesn't even want to show himself.
MLXG says, I need my shoes. I need to get Predator online. You can deal with this guy.
So it looks comical. Question will be why? Why? It's not that he didn't notice the Singe right behind the enemy turret. It's that he'll surrender all of his bot side jungle if he walks up. They may get a kill, they may not, so they don't necessarily go for it. And look at Brox and Caps. With this fight, you know they would have been straight into that blue side jungle.
Oh, bot lane again. Good trades from Fnatic. They're playing so aggressive.
Olaf is here.
Early tower dive.
Let's see if this works out. MLXG right down here and ready to go. Wants to come around from behind. Here it is. Ming trying to go forward onto the flash. We'll see what they can do with this one. Reckless going to be taken low, taken down. First blood over the side of RNG. It'll surely be a trade as MLXG is running the wrong way. Damage not quite finding its way onto him. We'll see who they give this one over to. It's Caps.
So this is the most classic MLXG play ever.
Yep.
He recalls topside, does not even care about any of his camps on the bot side jungle, just rushes straight down the river and ganks a lane that is getting pushed in. Fnatic, that was not the plan. They were waiting for the tower dive.
And Fnatic actually have to use 2 flashes over the wall to spare their blush and get something. So
unpredictable.
It's a bonanza of flashes, summoners, and more, and it's only a 1-for-1.
But we did get to see what's going to happen in this game where if you play bottom side as Fnatic, Singe is just sitting and split pushing on top side 24/7. They move in, MLXG rushes in behind him because he's like, I need to gank this lane here. They're getting pushed in. It's actually a good play from him to secure a kill for his team, but it's obviously very risky.
I believe he was caught on the tail end of vision, and by he, I mean both members of Fnatic as they went for that turret dive. They already, of course, had the warning marker on their heads for the Predator. It ends up a 1-for-1. The red buff does go to Caps, but damn if it wasn't a bit of fun.
That Acer Predator replay showed exactly what we were expecting in the difference of junglers with this substitution from RNG. That's the kind of early game action MLXG brings to the table.
You learn something new every day with MLXG, some good, some bad, but that's, of course, the charm of having him out there.
Some good, some bad, always interesting.
That's MLXG.
Well, RNG now find themselves tied up 1-to-1 with Fnatic. Gold very, very close. And remember, as we've gone through this so far, it's been Fnatic to take the early leads. Fnatic the ones banging at the door of RNG saying, let us in. We're trying to get to that Nexus before we reach this inevitable wall that is RNG teamfighting potential, and they just haven't been able to make that happen yet.
But just quickly to go back at the play that happened before here, the ward that was placed by RNG that could have spotted Fnatic moving in for tower dive was actually too far around the corner, did not see them.
You got to toggle it again on the screen here, so it was a bit ships in the night at the end of the day. Focusing on this game, we'll see Repo try to once again return to the dirty farming, or the proxying as different people call it, when you're able to farm those minions behind the turret. People often ask what the power of that is, although this time Repo, maybe you're in trouble.
Repo finding himself caught between a rock and a hard place, but can he get away from it?
Level 6!
That's the Singe we all know and love. Hits level 6, pops the ultimate, and goes right back in for more vision. Bottom side, it's a 2 versus 2 as Uzi gets himself gobbled up to safety.
They're coming with the roam again. This is the strategy. Leave Whippo alone top side, let him buy time, and then try and win bot. He
doesn't even get money over, gets executed and wastes all the enemy jungler's time.
And this is again a dramatic retelling of what Singe provides. The ability to go behind the turret makes the tank stay in lane and say, I can't give up a full wave to make this play happen. I need to stay at my turret. They don't even get the kill. And usually if the jungler isn't there, you get deep vision, you get more, and you actually take over the enemy topside jungle, as it's all about the bot side jungle right now.
Broxah has no ultimate for this play. Remember, Skarner ulti could be huge, but it's not available. Ming gonna be the target here first and foremost. Stun comes out, damage comes down, Caps comes through and grabs the money. As now Let Me shows up a little bit too little, maybe a little bit too late.
Nice.
A fantastic block from Hylissang means the second part of the ult's going nowhere fast. And Fnatic get out.
What a clean tower dive from Fnatic here. They know Hylissang needs to tank the turret as he can just step out down towards the bottom side and he won't be at risk of dying. So they secure the kill onto Ming. And Let Me's TP here was way too aggressive.
That's going to have to match MLXG.
All right, MLXG decides to pop the ulti, gets the flash away, but that'll be all.
And I feel like the turret dive execution does answer a kind of tertiary question we had compared to like the early win conditions we decided for actually defeating RNG, and that's, okay, Fnatic, you have been prone to looking down. The question of tilt is always raised. 2 games down in the chamber, how do you do on this aggressive execution that you need to make work with the sort of drafts you're playing? The answer is very nice.
Yeah, one of the very big stories around Fnatic, actually we might have to delay that because Yahoo is topside.
Here we go again. Just singed things, knocked up into the air. A lot of chain CC this time around, no escape.
But every time this happens, look at the minimap and notice how Caps has already left his mid lane to go to the other side of the map. RNG are trying their hardest to ward everything to try and spot when he's coming. And Uzi and Ming, their job is just to stay alive for as long as possible while the rest of RNG are trying to kill the Singed.
And we have the Singed build, the
The classic.
Triple Dark Seal, all about the extra regen and effective stats the Singed can use. I'm stacking there are, of course, none of those effects that don't stack. You do get the extra power on everything to stack it up.
And just to go back then to the point about Fnatic and not tilting in a game 3, a huge change for this team was getting Youngbuck as the team director, because what he actually managed to do was he introduced a culture where you don't blame each other. You don't blame each other. Mid lane Caps is getting attacked.
Caps gets himself away. Flash from MLXG, but the flash after from Broxah means he's out of there. Fnatic come out on top.
And the timing on the Ragnarok as well was used to try to turret that Reckless on the bot side. It wasn't available, just about to come off. He goes down. Nice execution by Fnatic.
And MLXG has already shown us multiple ganks rushing into lanes, left and right, trying to do something. Whippo is fairly squishy with this build. That is a thing we have to highlight. If he does get locked down by any sort of CC, he does die fairly quickly.
And a bit of bookkeeping. You don't actually get the extra ability power on stacks if he's actually involved in kills. Everything else stacks with the ability power is unique. You only get 1 round.
Let's see what build he wants. Some people, you know, you have the Rod of Ages into Rylized, you have Righteous Glory builds, you have Leandries as an important item if you want to deal damage.
Tons of options.
The mana scaling was removed, so you get a lot less heavy mana builds. I think Rod of Ages is a bit of a thing.
Abyssal Mask, maybe?
Abyssal Mask, possible. Rylized Rush is a big one as well. That's what Impact had to do over in North America. Impact had the Singed bans, but no Singed games at this tournament. But you're right. The thing with Singed, you kind of look at all the ability power and tank items and say, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it all good. Great. There's a lot of things you can go for with it. We just have to see what Whippo decides to grab for himself. Remember, one of the deaths on his side was an execute onto the turret.
Yep. So we will have a little bit of mismatched kill and death counts on the scoreboard this time around, but we'll see how well Whippo can continue this split push, because he can draw so much aggro from the enemy team as long as he keeps positioning himself correctly and timing that right.
I mean, you're also going to hit a point where Caps can go top and you can tower dive Let Me. If he gets poked down by the poison first, if that doesn't happen, keep going bottom side if you are Fnatic.
MLXG and Broxah sort of staring each other down here at the entrance to the blue side jungle, keeping track of one another. Ultimate will be available shortly for Broxah, is available for MLXG. That ulti is the difference between Olaf being able to do well in these fights or not. As long as he has it, he's not worried about the Skarner at all. Caps below half HP could be risky if this fight breaks out in full, but it looks like that's not going to be happening anytime soon. Xiaohu will just continue pushing up the wave.
On the top side here, Singed hasn't been able to return to the proxy, has fallen down a couple of times recently. What you usually want to see is double ward in the enemy red side jungle would set up maybe a safer Rift Herald if they ever actually have a cross-map play enacted by RNG. But RNG ignoring the Singed, trying to play bottom side of the map, get their own forward vision, but for now being slowed down by Caps and Broxah.
They wanted to contest the chickens, but it's very, very dangerous to fight Skarner in the Spires. He has unlimited mana, he's really, really fast. They back away from that one, not one to risk it.
Oh, another important thing here for RNG is the fact that the BF sword came in from Uzi makes it a lot easier for him to actually push back the wave. Because the way you normally set up the dives here for Fnatic is that Reckless and Hilson gets the push, then Caps and Broxah shows up and you're stuck under your turret and you get collapsed on. But Uzi is actually able to match this push very easily, and then they can just step away from the wave if Caps is roaming. And Caps needs to use a defensive ult now, which will slow down the snowball a little bit.
First time, honestly, in the first 15 minutes, we're seeing RNG control pace of the game. And speaking of controlling pace,
Whippo again, caught out a bit here, tries to run himself away. Remember, he has the Boots of Alacrity for bonus slow resistance, but he's not that resistant to damage. Does go down for the third time.
Still very squishy, and the moment the ult is used defensively by Caps, then Fnatic then realize, oh, we can't actually do anything if they attack Whippo, and MLXG, he just runs straight to that top lane with Predator.
We get the answer. We do see Nathan Wisp in the inventory. It's going to be Shirelius, you'd have to think, from the Singed here. Turbo Singed, the expectation when you see that item this early.
Xiaohu hanging around bottom side, but remember the Realm Warp was used shortly ago, a little while ago, to make sure they force the ult away from Caps so that he doesn't have that to make a play for a turret dive.
So I have to remember that Ryze ulti was nerfed again.
Yep.
And the cooldown is now sitting at that 180 seconds.
It's very long.
The base, it's very long. You feel like it's a completely new game when it actually is ready once again for you. We'll go down slightly with the CDR, but for Xiaohu, it's hard for him to follow things like a Talia. But Ryze is one of the champions who can do it, and obviously can port another member with him if needed. So there's ways for Xiaohu to try and match the roaming.
Whippo just continues throwing Let Me around up here in the top side. The CS very even between these two. The early Abyssal Mask from Let Me does a good job at preventing some of that poison damage, as well as making it so Whippo takes a bit more from the Bellows Breath whenever he gets in range of the Ornn. In the jungle, you can see Cinder Hulks completed along with those Predator Boots on both junglers. As bottom side, whoop, Uzi barely gets him.
And he's been stifled, right? That's the thing about Whippo, is after falling down 3 times, been stifled, less of the proxying, just trading farm with Ornn, who has enough items now. The Catalyst completed into the full Abyssal Mask to stand up, tank the wave, and take trades. It means the Singed isn't creating map pressure top. As you mentioned, Deficio, with the BF shot onwards, Uzi is getting lane control and bot side. This forward foot draft from Fnatic is again slowing down. This is much more the tempo RNG is looking for. We're looking for Fnatic to once again make the next proactive move.
Yeah, they should still be able to at least pressure Uzi and Ming away from this bot lane turret, but it has taken them quite a while now, and the QSS is suddenly completed on a Tahm Kench, so he's a tough target to lock down for Brox, and if you go for Uzi, you just get the Devour coming in. So it's very smart itemization from the RNG bottom lane, and you can see here how they are not really too scared, and they can instantly just kill the wave. Now Caps is on his way, the mist should be called, and they should be just stepping back, or they can go forward and trade. Now they might die.
Ming and Uzi have to retreat from this one. Caps and Brox are showing up. MLXG looking to come in from behind. Tahm Kench ulti goes through, still looking to make the plays. Caps over the wall, going to be chased down by MLXG. And he's the first one to fall. Ryze ulti comes through, able to find a little bit more damage. Ming now spitting Hylissang back out, popping the shield on his own thick skin. The CC onto Hylissang is incredible, but not incredible enough. He'll still walk himself away. It's 1 for 0 RNG, but now Uzi goes too far forward, and he's going to be punished. Ming goes down too. Awesome turnaround from Fnatic, but MLXG is still here. Xiaohu is still here, but they won't find anything else.
Excuse me, Ming there was very off. Wasn't expecting the re-engage out of positioning when the Flash couldn't get the Devour. We're still fighting though. This is another one of these long extended fights.
These teams are bloodthirsty in this third game. I don't think it'll go on any further. Maybe?
These are famous last words when RNG hits the rift.
Meanwhile, Whippo is just top lane, pushing in here. Let Me has returned after just 10 million fights.
We'll talk about the replay, then talk about Whippo. But the replay starts, and RNG are ahead of this way. They know what to do. And MLXG has snuck all the way around. Caps finds the threat in melee range. Not the strong suit of a Talia. And I thought that would end the action. But specifically watch Uzi here, as for once, he's caught red-handed.
Yeah, he wants to get, after trying to get the kill onto Hylissang, he thinks maybe, oh, that's one more hit on him, but Brox actually hides really well around the corner here. I think Let Me was looking for opportunities to try and TP down, and that's the TP we saw just at the end that was cancelled, because obviously there's still Singed right next to him. So Let Me ends up staying in his lane, but wanted so badly to join this team fight and get away from Whippo.
Greed is a deadly sin indeed. Uzi now 0, 1, and 2 from now on. He was part of the kills they got, but you hate to see it happen when you just get a little bit too trigger happy to clean up a bit more on the end of the fight. Fnatic now sitting at about, honestly, not much of a gold lead at all. 300 gold, only the difference in the kills between the two teams, 16 minutes in.
And it's very important to highlight with Singed compared to other tanks. His scaling is not that great. Sure, in team fights, the grounded or one good flank can be important, but it's not a massive Ornn ulti that can hit 5 people at once. So it is going to be tough for Whippo if he doesn't start getting ahead in this lane.
And we have to connect that point to teleport plays. Ornn teleports in. We know the Horn is coming in, and then it's a big teamfight impact. Singe needs setup time after a long teleport channel. Doesn't have that same impact there either.
Xiaohu almost walked towards that river brush, but just giving Broxton and Caps a little bit of false hope there as Fnatic, again, moving members up into the river, crossing into enemy jungle territory. Glacial Fissure coming down now onto Ming. Predator has been used by MLXG as he wants to go a little bit further forward onto this one. Loses about half his health. Ming gonna be the target. They know he can save anyone else. Reckless also gonna be here providing firepower. Ming still barely gonna be kept alive. Caps grabs the damage onto him. Xiaohu now. Whippo going in. Flash into the fling and Uzi's gone.
Fnatic were looking for a fight and RNG thought they could take it because Lenby was walking down from top lane. He didn't have his TP, it was used before and cancelled. Whippo had his, so the moment Fnatic realized, wait a minute, this is a 5 versus 4, they just turn and kill him.
Say whatever you want about Singe teleports if he's the only one coming in. Turbo Singe did the work, got the flip, and Fnatic now will at least take bot lane turret off the back.
Awesome fight there for Fnatic. One-upping RNG, taking them down in those team fights that we've been talking about so much this series. That will be turret first blood over to Fnatic. And critically, gentlemen, this is that one condition we've talked about in the past games. RNG getting first turret bottom, 100% win rate. Not in this game.
That is very, very true. And if you are Fnatic, I feel like every single time we talk about them slowing down and how it's in RNG's favor, we get a big fight like this one.
That's what they need to do.
And Fnatic, it actually doesn't start that well for them, but if you look at the minimap, Letme's walking from top lane, Whippo can TP. Fnatic, they realize he TP's in, and now RNG, you're stuck.
And Ming was guarding the blast plan, so they didn't engage, and then Whippo says, I'm pretty damn fast. He gets Chilling Smite, you wouldn't notice. Gets on, the flash in. Uzi's dead, of course, used that summoner earlier. Great execution by Fnatic.
Some awesome communication and team play from that Acer Predator replay. You can see right there, Fnatic coordinating well, taking down another turret now in the top side, bringing that lead up to 3,500. It'll be shrunk a little bit as Uzi grabs turret bottom side.
And we got a small example in that fight of some of the small things to look for with the amount of knockbacks. It was Caps with a knockback coming in. It was, of course, the fling from Whippo onto Uzi. We're going to get a lot more of this. So these are fairly spread out fights. Will be very good for Fnatic if they can just secure that one little pick at the start of it.
And securing picks is much easier when you can get into enemy territory, set down some wards like we're seeing Fnatic do right now. MLXG and Xiaohu again trying to invade the Fnatic jungle near the Raptor pit, take control over that area, but it's Fnatic with a multi-man push in the mid lane, but it's Uzi knocking down the tier 2 bottom side has an answer.
What more did you get was a question we asked in game 1, in game 2, and Fnatic have really come back. Found a lot from that play bot side. Bot lane, turret into a Drake, into the Rift Herald, and the threat of another turret. They did end up, of course, trading the mid lane outer of RNG. They're an inner turret, but it's actually very difficult to return to an inner turret advantage unless you have a Camille or a Split Pusher. Ornn is very unlikely to walk bot side and crack an inhibitor himself.
Important to note, the Ornn also has the banner of command up and running now, which is a very big hassle for Singe to clear away that minion. It's immune to spell damage, so he's got to sit there and just bonk it over and over again. Not what he wants to do.
Got the dematerializer, a few stacks still left, so there's a couple of minutes now where he can deal with it that Fnatic can still use to try and get another fight. Now Whippo will get attacked. Xiaohu and MLXG are going for him. Ming could also ult in, but Baron is alive, so that would be risky.
Whippo buying time as Singe wants to do. Runs into MLXG here.
Nice.
CC locked down, no way out.
Good problem solving there by the side of RNG. No real way for him to go, and it didn't have his flash out. Nice pincer, that's what you want to see.
Simply just pins him down. The grounded effect, of course, against Xiaohu. Didn't really do much because we're still gonna kill you.
Yeah. And commenting on the items that I see from the Ornn and what we're seeing around the board, also worth pointing out Black Cleaver on MLXG's Olaf. A very bruiser style of Olaf, not going for some sort of a Righteous Glory or more tank-oriented itemization.
And he actually did this before, also against Fnatic. The very first time they played each other here at MSI when Caps was on the Yasuo pick, Fnatic realized, oh, we can just kill the Olaf every time. We don't have to respect him as a tank. They can look to do the same here if we have these front-to-back team fights where Reckless and Caps are just hitting whatever is right in front of them.
Doesn't necessarily have the most physical damage to synergize, but it's only the Caitlyn. And at least in these mid-game fights, the target that Olaf is hitting, the target that Caitlyn is hitting is very rarely going to be the same.
Yeah,
however,
I hate the build. I hate it.
I think as a snowball, but he does have 4 kills. He is going to be able to run at Caps, and if he can just trivialize Caps, maybe it's something.
I just think when you have 4 kills as an Olaf, be as tanky as possible, so the best AD carry in the world has more time to auto attack.
You sound like a support main right there. True, Deficio.
It's true. Where's my Oracle?
That's a Chad build right there, Deficio. He's doing the damage. He's trying to carry his team, but Xiaohu right now, again, trying to catch Whippo, but he's the one who now finds himself potentially caught out. Fracture comes through, going to be able to find the stun on that one, grounded up.
Who's chasing who?
Bringing everybody into the picture here. Xiaohu getting a lot of damage down to Whippo, but he should still be brought down here. Caps will be given the money for that.
So they're going to trade that for the top lane turret. RNG already there with MLXG and Let Me to take it down, but both teams seem to favor just killing whoever's in that bot lane. It's Whippo pushing forward, he gets attacked. This will only happen now, while we're still fairly early into the mid game. Once we get a little bit further in and the Baron is a massive risk or threat to take, you can't really go down and 4-man kill a side lane.
Right. They're going to force the movement here from RNG. They will put down the Rift. No minion wave to join it, so we'll get poked out a little bit. Not going to lead to a turret here, you would think.
No, just a little bit of damage. Shelly will get off one extra auto attack, not a whole lot, so. Rift Herald, not the most successful use you could think of, but hey, sometimes you just need to force the rotation.
The Baron play that we saw last game from Fnatic, where they actually had the 4K gold lead. Kaza got into the pit, he stole it, no one stopped him. That was a big problem and cost him so much momentum in that game, and suddenly the scaling of RNG kicked in. This game here, it's kind of the same story for Fnatic, but as we highlighted earlier, it is a bit easier for them to win late game fights with both Taliyah and Ezreal on their side. But the one thing I want to highlight for Fnatic's Baron setup is that the grounded effect from Singed is fantastic at denying people from actually getting into the Baron pit in the first place.
Can't flash.
If you have the control around it and you put it down on MLXG, he's not getting in there, and then Broxah can secure the Baron with the smite. Might be an interaction to look for if Fnatic keeps the control.
We'll keep our eyes open for that one as 24 minutes into the game. Baron dances, Baron contest, Baron vision all becomes much closer to reality, as that will become a highly contested objective. It's Xiaohu in the bottom side, split pushing against Whippo's Singed. And that Singed doesn't have a lot of tankiness just yet. Leandri's Torment, Shirelia's Reverie, Uzi gonna be forced to be saved by Ming's Tom Kench. Tries to get himself away, pops the heal to give Ming a little extra move speed to avoid the shove. RNG thinking about maybe needing to collapse there, popping the Predator on the Olaf, but now bottom side it's Whippo using the ultimate, trying to escape from Xiaohu, who flashes forward to land the Rune Prison. TP now gonna be used, Whippo trying to escape. It's gonna be a split fight at the start. They've already lost the top laner for Fnatic, as Rekkles is caught behind enemy lines. A little more damage to finish him off. On the front line goes Xiao, who's still surviving for now. But Tom Kench counters Skarner as they're still able to find more damage. Hits RNG with a 3 for 0 as Hylissang and Broxah have to run away.
Oh, Fnatic lose so many kills here. RNG, they see that Singe in the bot lane. They know he's squishy and they attack him. Again, Whippo dies, and RNG, they know. TP and take the fight, win it. They're looking towards the Baron. Fnatic, that early goal lead, it means nothing now.
Seen the Singe getting assistance from his team, but just as Hylissang walked up and it looked like Singe had flashed to safety, they realized they were caught between a rock and a hard place. There's no way out. Rekkles went down early. Now the Baron has started at very low for RNG.
And that save from Ming at the end is exactly why this champion with a QSS is so good against Skarner. If he's anywhere near the person you pull, the pull is neutralized, and they don't lose anyone.
Get to see it's MLXG once again with Xiaohu going for Whippo. And MLXG, he's used to playing this kind of style of game back in the LPL, so he knows you just flash in, secure to kill as fast as possible, and now you can turn on the rest of Fnatic.
Rekkles was right down the left, and Hylissang, instead of going to the Singe, went to help him, but there was no escape plan for Rekkles or for the side of Fnatic. RNG able to chase down the kills, pick up the Baron from here. Again, Sword versus Shield is such an appropriate metaphor for this game, and sadly RNG one step ahead again.
I feel like we're experiencing deja vu every single game. It's Fnatic with a lead. RNG hit the mid-game turn they need, that counter-attack, and then they find themselves in the driver's seat with a Baron.
I mean, this is why a lot of people looked at this matchup and said, well, this is heavily RNG favored, because while Fnatic can do well in the early game, RNG just fights so well, they match your fights so effectively, and it's happening again.
Hylissang caught on the wrong end of the Weaver's wall, does survive for now. Staying here with the rest of the team. Whippo pops the ultimate on Singed. MLXG wanting to go in here, throws down the Chilling Smite. Ornn ulti coming through as well, finds its way onto Reckless. That's a big pick for RNG. Xiaohu takes the kill, and the push continues down the mid lane.
That's a strike they needed. Very nice execution from RNG. It'll get them so much, given they still hold the Baron buff for 2 minutes. Mid lane, outer turret goes down, and those hopes of Fnatic forcing extra games goes down as well.
They've got the Baron buff for 2 minutes. There's no Braum ult, no Singed ult, no Talia ult. Fnatic tools are not available to stop this assault. RNG will continue for now. They lose the minion wave. Tier 2 still kept alive.
And early in the game, RNG indexed heavily on magic resist. Multiple magic resist items on everyone. It was a double Abyssal Mask game. Rise and also Let Me on the Ornn picking it up. Now the armor is getting pieced together with the gold lead they're putting down. And Reckless going down first plays into the hands of RNG.
So RNG have taken out all these outer turns here, only missing the one in the mid lane. Meanwhile, Whippo was in the side lane. Just like last game, big difference between Camille and Singed and how fast you're gonna kill the turrets. So Singed split pushing is rarely gonna be your win condition. He can push and he can join for a surprise flank. That is a way to create a pick for them, but right now, it's all RNG favor.
It's been a team effort to shut down the Singe. We saw MLXG earlier, Xiaohu roaming up, Xiao in the side lane as the game went on, and with teleport, he was unlocked onto the map. A team effort has made the Singe largely only being a thorn, no more than anything else for the side of RNG.
He even had to sell his Boots of Alacrity to get Mercury Treads instead to try to survive some of this heavy CC coming out of the likes of Xiaohu. But now, the Cloud Drake will fall in favor of RNG. We'll see what else happens here as they've still got 20 seconds left on the Baron. Probably not going to be too much more done with that. But RNG now sits almost at a 3,000 gold lead. A little bit over a 3,000 gold lead, I should say. As the tier 2 turret goes down, that'll bring it up to about 4,000 gold. As Fnatic have to find a way to strike back.
Well, we always got to look at minion waves here, because Singe is often starting slow pushes. Some of the side lanes, and then he's suddenly in the other one. Bot lane here, it's gonna take a while before that wave is pushed in for RNG, so they only have the mid lane wave to deal with. Can they maybe get a fight instead?
Uzi on the flank. It's not normally the AD carry you see flanking, but when you got the rest of the team right there, why not? Hylissang trying to back himself away. Broxton looking to go for a pull, can't quite find it. 2 already dead. Reckless looking to run away. The Ornn ulti comes through. Reckless still able to sidestep that one. MLXG survives, but RNG have found themselves 2.
2 picks already. The minion wave coming in. Reckless!
Oh, make it 3. Reckless has no way away from Uzi here.
This is all with Singe still in the side wave. He's going to have to recall. This game could just end.
Caps wants to go after Uzi, but instead he gets caught out, beaten down as well. RNG, 4 dead opponents. They push into the base. They've got themselves already onto inhibitor turret number 1.
And we said this before, yeah, RNG, they're so good at playing these scrappy games, playing games with tons of skirmishes and team fights. This is what they do so often back in the LPL. Fnatic tried their hardest to really get ahead in these games here, but every single time that RNG managed to match it and get the advantage over on their side. It is now 2 inhibs to 0, a 7K goal lead as well for RNG.
Times are dire for Fnatic after that push. Disaster from RNG's success in that setup. They just weren't ready to stop it on the side of Fnatic.
And Fnatic, at the end of the day, did their research and said, we need to attack them, we need to roam. This is how we got our advantages. They played to that. RNG also were fully aware, and their defensive play has been beautiful. This was the outnumbered fight. Singe is in the top lane. He knows he can't actually change anything if he comes over. Reckless does survive at the start here, but him actually tripping up and falling down is what really cemented the base being ruined.
Want to point out there was also a flash devour from Ming in that fight to save Xiaohu and make it so RNG didn't drop a single man.
It did seem like Reckless could have just jumped with the Arcane Shift over the wall and found a safer path back into the wave. He tries to go direct line translation, and that's where Uzi catches him getting a victory.
There's 1 inhibitor left to take now for RNG, standing there on the top side, and you can see the team focusing their efforts on pushing that down now. Whippo still across the map, but likely realizing the team's going to need him. One more big lost team fight is the game for Fnatic.
Right now it's looking like RNG will go into the final on a 9-game win streak. They had such a rough start to the group stages, came in only the day before groups started. Jet lag was a very real thing, had to figure out what exactly they needed to play in order to win. And after the couple of days of back and forth wins and losses. They've just been dominating.
They'll be equalizing the longest win streak, of course. Flash Wars 3-0 in the play-in final into 6-0 at the start of group stage. Here we do see the Weaver's Wall used.
Absolutely insane performances from RNG so far. Weaver's Wall comes out from Cap, trying to cut him off a bit here. Does separate MLXG from the rest of the team, takes him low. He pops the Ragnarok to escape. True Shot Barrage finds him in the back, but it's not enough damage to take him down. Whippo wants the flank here, coming up through the river. RNG make their way towards him. Whippo can't run into this 5-man squad alone. Fnatic just a little bit desynced there, weren't able to make that collapse the way they wanted to.
Oh, but they really want that fight.
Only finds its way onto Hylissang. Baron live in 7 seconds. Enemy jungler's low.
They don't have a lot of time. The minion waves are about to hit in bot lane, mid lane a little bit further away. RNG still control the pit, and with all those recalls, Fnatic will probably give it up on this Baron.
This is why it's so important to have those inhibitors down like this. It makes it nigh impossible for Fnatic to contest. They need a godly smite from Broxa to try to go in and save this one, but instead, he's caught out by a beautiful prediction!
Beautiful stuff there. That is the sort of play you like to see. Orn's skill expression, not always there. Predicts the flash, catches him out. Now there's no smite. Now it's Baron RNG.
A flash predicted is a Baron earned, and now RNG, 7,000 gold up yet again. They've got everybody alive. Enemy jungler dead for 30 seconds, pushing down the top side. Hylissang caught out in his own jungle, surely going to fall here. Ace in the hole comes through to seal the deal. Uzi goes on a rampage, and the march down the top lane continues.
They gotta wait for the minion wave, but it's on its way for them to get that last in it. Fnatic will be forced to go back and try and defend. Hylissang is there for another 30 seconds. He's not going to be there for the next fight if RNG just force it now.
Waiting on the minion wave doesn't seem to be the plan. They at least get a couple of pot shots onto that heavily armored turret.
There we go.
Now we've brought him up. The minions are here to party. Seismic shoving him in. Not really a very important target. Caps now being chased down. There comes your Orn Horn as Caps gets bursted, barely getting himself away. The damage coming through. The Guardian Angel into MLXG. Reckless finds a shutdown onto Xiaohu. He's able to grab it on MLXG as well. Brox is still looking to find some more damage. Uzi taking very low. Triple kill over onto Reckless.
He's gonna look
Big
for more
trying to get away from this one. Surely there's no way out. A Quadra for Fnatic's AD carry. Let me as the last man standing. They want to just provide time for Reckless to walk over here and take him down. Let me wanting to get away, but that should not happen. Broxa wants to provide the CC. Pentakill for Reckless!
What a story. We had 2 Quadras. One goes the way of Reckless, one goes the way of Caps. This one, the third one of the tournament for them. They leave it on the silver platter for the man that played so well in the regular season. Feel-good moment for Fnatic.
We just had RNG looking to win the entire game, but they walk past the turret, they rush down to the Nexus turret, and they fight Fnatic, but they lose.
The beautiful thing about this one, guys, is why it happened. The beautiful thing was they actually had Ezreal and Sin split pushing. There were no super minions pushing in because they killed both waves before that all started.
A sloppy play from RNG may be the breath of hope Fnatic needed. Let's take another look at how they do it.
They all jump in, the turrets are there dealing a ton of damage to FLICKR and the rest of the team, and Caps, while he takes so much damage, he stays alive, and Xiaohu is suddenly knocked back, and he's going to be taken down.
Uzi's under turret here again. Both minion waves pushed out, so nothing's around to create any more threat in the base. But Fnatic are able to clean up, and that's why we get that extended pentakill.
That is the first pentakill of all of MSI 2018. Reckless, like you already said, got a quadra kill earlier. Caps got a quadra kill earlier, but this is the first one that goes all the way with this last shot. Beautifully done by Fnatic. Now the game sits not even 1,000 gold apart. Fnatic feel like they've got the chance. Inhibitors have all respawned.
And it was so important in that last fight that Broxa walked in, got his ult onto Xiaohu, and he didn't use his QSS until the very, very last second of it, so he got pulled all the way in onto that turret, dealt no damage, and just got taken down so quickly. So in the heat of the moment, I think RNG was so confident this was it, they got it, but then Fnatic find a way back.
They felt they were 10 seconds away from hands off the keyboard and celebrating a spot in the grand final. They're halted for now, and the gold lead also is really nothing to write home about. It's about 1,000 gold.
Yeah, all the inhibs just respawned. Like, we are even now. Reckless is on 4 items with this Ezreal. Sure, Uzi's on a Caitlyn in the late game, but we keep highlighting how this RNG composition is not just steamrolling over Fnatic in the late game.
I'm sure the fans at home have shifted their expectations with us. It's not game 1, it's not game 2. They can actually win a straight 5v5.
Whippo finding his way towards the enemy team here in the river, but MLXG gonna be caught out! Big pick! Uzi keeping himself away from the seismic shove. Fnatic now 5-man pushing down the mid lane. They've got priority, they've got the man advantage. Let's see what they can find with it.
Remember that DPS build from MLXG, not looking very useful right now for him. He dies so quickly. Fnatic and Reckless, they want the turret.
Fnatic pushing down, death ball middle. They've got the inhibitor turret already down. Inhibitor will be the target now. They take it. No effort whatsoever required to blow that one out of the water. As they back themselves away, they don't want to risk anything else.
With Uzi this strong, they can't end the game. It's just a mid lane inhibitor. As Deficio mentioned, it's looking hard to return to those 2 down inhibitors if Fnatic can keep playing on the RNG side of the map.
One thing I also want to point out, as we're getting into the late game where builds are becoming completed, remember with Ornn on the side of RNG, you've got those upgrades that can allow this team to scale even harder here as well. You've already got that purchased on the side of Xiaohu. We'll see if Uzi grabs his anytime soon.
A nice bonus for sure, but we always know the big late game fights. It's all about the execution between the 2 teams. Reckless has shown now with the pentakill and also him taking out MLXG after how much damage he can actually deal to this front line of RNG. Ledley is the main tank. He needs to be the one soaking the DPS while Uzi and Xiaohu are picking their targets.
Every game, the gold graph, as it was on our screen a moment ago, has gone up, it's gone down. This time it was RNG in control earlier. That last play has really shifted momentum. A very seesaw 2-game advantage for RNG, and yet the extra games we hoped for are closer to reality.
And this could be one of the biggest turnarounds we have seen. A team is down 2-0 in a semi-final. They have lost 2 inhibs. They have lost everything on the map. And the enemy team, one of the best team fighting teams in the world in RNG, walks down their base and lose the fight.
Not just one of the best team fighting teams in the world, a team that you're also have lost both games in the group stage too. Fnatic have not been able to find the weakness of RNG so far in this tournament, but this might be where they can. Caps takes a single shot from Uzi, loses a third of his health. Ace in the hole gets fired off, finds its way onto Whippo, who's now behind enemy lines and needing to run for the hills. RNG being collapsed on now by the rest of Fnatic. The trap gets stepped on. Broxa can't make the pursuit any further. Whippo still wasting time.
He's still running right now. Fnatic has used 2 flashes. MLXG wants to kill. That was a very big play from RNG's side. Look at Reckless, look at Caps. They instantly flashed away when they saw the engage. They could not chase the rest of RNG down.
And it was worth chasing because the death timer is 60 seconds as Baron is only 20 seconds out. That means at minimum RNG will have control of the pit. Any more than that, we have to watch and see.
The Cinch tries to waste all their time that he can, but he still gets caught at the end of the day, and that means 35 seconds of 4 versus 5 for the European team here as Baron spawns in 2 seconds.
It's almost too risky for them to try and stop it. If they get turned on and lose a fight, the game is over. Look at Fnatic. They're aiming towards the base instead. They don't have any minions right now. There's a wave though with Hylissang. It's not close enough, and the Baron is secured, plus the Baron buff with the recalls.
Baron secured. Fnatic just pushing out the waves, like you said, too risky. Can't try to 4 versus 5 that. You lose the game unless it goes perfectly. So now RNG again get to try to put the final nails in the Fnatic coffin. It's their Baron, it's their push, it's their momentum.
It's one of the few ways you can force Fnatic to square up, to actually fight you mano a mano, because you have the Baron, you'll roll through, you feel confident in your 5v5. That on upgrade you were mentioning is there, the Molten Edge being worn by Uzi. Fnatic have to once again pull something out of the air like they did around the bot lane inhibitor.
You would think that RNG are extra aware of that possibility now, considering they're the ones that essentially gifted the opportunity to Fnatic earlier. I expect a very level-headed approach from them as they go towards this now, not wanting to run past any more turrets, but we'll see if that's the case. Ace in the hole fired off, only finds Broxa.
Have to keep remembering the grounded effect into a fling from a Cinch. Suddenly you're split from your team, and Fnatic can try and take you down, but there is no flash for Whippo. It was used in that last little chase he had down towards the bottom lane, and that is a big thing for his own team back impact, because now RNG are gonna see him run at them. They can react appropriately.
Bo, you would think he wants to find himself on the flank here as well, running directly at this RNG lineup, not likely to be very effective. Caps is off to the side, wants to see if maybe he can find an angle, but it doesn't look to be so. Seismic Shove only finding its way onto the minions. RNG continuing to push up bit by little bit, allowing that enchanted cannon minion to do its work onto the inhibitor. True Shot Barrage fired off, only does a small amount of damage, blocking the Iron Solari. Shield going to be used there to block against it. Cannon minion tanks for a while, but still goes down. RNG push continues. The next minion wave is already colliding. Fnatic wanting to stay topped off here.
Yeah, Sinchcomp actually forcing in 5v5 and defending this well. It's not necessarily predicted, but it is so far sticking. You feel like Uzi is 2 autos away. Has not enough safety. There's those autos. They get 1 inhibitor. Remember, they needed a 5v5. Even though there was 2 inhibitors exposed, they only get the 1.
Again, missing that flash for Whippo just hurts them so much. Proxa can be the man to jump in though with his engage. QSS, however, is on for Xiaohu. It's there for Uzi, it's there for Ming. It is not easy to find the target. So Fnatic, they're lacking a good way to start the fight here. And RNG, they know that. So by them just sitting back and sieging, they force Fnatic to try and overstep.
Only the Weaver's Wall maybe exists as a way to create battle terrain rather than sieging terrain to start this off, but it's a multi-pronged process. He can't do it alone. But now RNG back away, push up, back away, and push up. No threatened engage yet by Fnatic.
Uzi will just continue putting pot shots into these turrets whenever he gets a chance. The cannon minion will do the same. Gets thrown forward by the Seismic Shove to keep it in range.
Oh, look at the bot lane as well. There's an army of minions on the way for RNG. Whippo can go down and clear it very fast. RNG knows this. Remember, they can step through the wall here.
Yeah, Searing Charge does create terrain there, so even that hope of making something happen needs to be fully pounced on instantly. Third and last inhibitor turret falls down.
Final inhibitor turret gone means RNG now have access to the entirety of the Fnatic inhibitor line. Will they decide to go for this one? Are they going to rotate down to that army of minions in the bottom side? Top lane inhibitor still at half HP. Ace in the hole fired off yet again. Fnatic looking for the opportunity here. They don't just want to give these away for free. You don't want to have those double super minions pouring in.
20 seconds on the flash from Whippo. Maybe then he can try and jump in, but man, it cost him so much. Because Fnatic have been sitting back and just watched multiple inhibs die, unable to start a fight.
2 inhibitors down, but at least it's still not that third one. As soon as that goes, you're in a world of trouble. You're pretty much stuck in the base. RNG seeing this opportunity, they go for the Elder.
And RNG, after their mistakes in the bot lane inhibitor, are dotting their I's, they're crossing their T's, they're definitely second-guessing every move they're making. They know they're in complete control. Should be the first Elder of the game, happily claimed by RNG.
And with 3 Elemental Drakes under their belt, that's quite a true damage burn being applied by that. It's a very daunting team fight task now for Fnatic to have to fight these guys.
And now we're getting the ZZ rods coming in. Build it. Once you've placed it, go back, sell it. Buy a real damage item for yourself. It's Reckless who did it this time around. It's just, again, to try and create more push from your base to buy more time for your team. It's a small thing for Fnatic, but it shows how much gold is in this game already.
It's going to have to be the small things. That flash is up for Whippo, the big engage there onto the ground, and that has to be the case. A perfect wall, maybe that's it. They know they have to fight. The Alamo, the last place they fight for, has to be this third inhibitor.
In a situation like this, where a loss here means you're out of the tournament, you've got to take every little advantage, every little possible avenue you can to try to raise that chance of victory. The push will still continue here from RNG. Remember, the Elder Drake burn doesn't last a terrible amount of time on the first take. So Fnatic will try to weather that storm.
So I have to look always at Ming on the Tahm Kench, where he's positioned. If he's too far away from someone like Uzi, then there is that flash fling opportunity. Ideally, it maybe goes to Xiaohu, who's not sitting with the G8. You can burn him down before he gets to use the Hourglass. But if Ming is positioned correctly, he will always be able to prevent it.
And let me's boss, Zhonya's Hourglass, is saying, well, I don't have a QSS. If you want to focus me, I'll go into stasis and deal with my teammates. Definitely a different way to approach this sort of a scenario, but everyone has their tool if they're the ones that are going to be singled out by Skarner or even that Sage.
Caps' health bar is one of Uzi's auto attacks, by the way. So much damage on these late game full build carries. Whippo trying to utilize the ultimate to keep the regen up, clear out some of the waves, but the final inhibitor is taking damage. If RNG take this, it's such a huge gain in map control overall, and it makes it so Fnatic can't do much of anything. Glacial Fissure already going to be coming out. Whippo gets himself back. Fnatic can't hold this line any longer. The inhibitor falls, and RNG's got nothing but Nexus left to look at.
It's so hard for Fnatic to start the fight. They're very split up in how to try and engage. Bromold came in from Hylissang, but no one tried to follow up because he didn't hit the correct targets. And now the minion's coming there. Try now.
Or an ultimate comes through. This is going to be the fight. Let me able to find the control onto Caps. He's gone. And Fnatic will surely not be able to find the fight now. Skarner Pull not going to be used effectively yet again. Xiaohu taken low. Fnatic still has 4 members of their roster alive, but RNG with 5 will still look to end the game. Xiaohu putting the damage on the Nexus turrets. They're still able to look for more into the fight as they proc the GA onto MLXG. He's going to look to be taken down here, but instead the damage comes through. Fnatic's members will fall, and RNG will win the fight. Reckless, critically still alive, trying to make a last-minute stand. Ming is taken low, Letney's taken low, MLXG hammering down on the Nexus, but that is game, and RNG will move on to the finals.
3-0 against Fnatic. They fell behind in the early game, but they always showed us why they are so good at fighting. Skirmishes, team fights, they can take all of them, and they keep beating Fnatic. This was one of the closest 3-0 series we have had, but RNG always showed us why they can win in the late game.
And even when they had that moment that you looked at as, wow, that could have been the throw, they came back, and like we said, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, making sure every single thing is taken care of from that point. They recognize the issue and immediately correct it.
To me, the most beautiful story, I think I take away from this series, which does, of course, end Fnatic's spring season in many ways, is when you looked at their games in EU, they looked at the enemy teams and said, we can outscale, we don't have to pick the lane, we'll be the ones that always win that late game team fight. They finally, in their prep for RNG, sat down and said, okay, we're bested in the late game, we need to win it in the early game, because we cannot match RNG and Uzi in the 5v5 fights. They found a better enemy on the day. As you said, Deficio, they gave as good as they got. There were the jabs. It was a boxing match, but the pre-match favorite, as is often the case, comes out the victor.
RNG have to feel good about finding that win. They looked good in their wins. It wasn't perfectly clean, but at the same time, their team fight execution, their ability to stall out and play to win conditions was well demonstrated.
That's the thing I take away from this was, the ability to always match constant aggression, know how to react to it, so you're not just falling further and further behind. That being said, Fnatic had a lot of big moments where a small thing suddenly goes in their favor. Think of the Baron in game 2, and that game looks completely different. So RNG showed that they can definitely bleed, but they can also fight back.
And I think Fnatic take away for their adventures in summer, we can play a different style. We can show the proactivity that maybe only Vitality drew out of them in the playoffs over in EU. So a learning excursion, Caps stepping up and becoming a man in front of the world audience. There's still a lot of good to take away from Fnatic, even though it was a 3-0.
And even better things to take away. If you're RNG, you just continue again with Uzi in the late game team fights, but MLXG comes into this last game here. He's like, I'm ready to play this time. He's just rushing around everywhere, fighting people left and right, and it was enough for RNG, once we got to that 20-minute mark, to turn a big fight around, take the Baron, and they showed much better control around the big objectives than Fnatic.
They showed the ability to not only be aggressive, but be patient, to play however they needed to play in the moment. And that adaptation is so important when you're playing in these best-of-5 series, when you're playing in these high-stakes matches, and whoever ends up winning tomorrow has quite an opponent to face.
We definitely look forward and say for both Kingzone and the Flash Wolves, can you show something that can stand up to the shield of RNG, the inevitability of the late game? If it's to be Kingzone, it needs to be the very best of what we saw on the LCK. They haven't found that on the world stage, and for the Flash Wolves, they win. It's a whole different ball game as well.
It's going to be awesome.
Yep.
I love the fact that RNG are not winning by playing, you know, the super clean, slow style. Like if a team is attacking them, they attack back, and that is the thing they're bringing to MSI.
Well, RNG have earned their spot in the final, and to hear from the winners themselves, let's send it down to Shox and one of the victorious junglers.
Thank you very much. I am here with Karsa after qualifying with RNG for the MSI final. Karsa, I just saw you backstage being very nervous, looking at your team to close out that game finally. What does it mean for you to make it to the MSI final with RNG?
就刚刚我们看到你在后台非常紧张的看到你的队友赢最后一场比赛，想问一下你打进决赛对你意味着什么？
这是我人生第一次在这种国际大赛上面打到决赛吧，所以对我来说，对我来说是特一种肯定吧，就觉得自己的努力有回报的感觉。
So, this is the first time that I actually made to final in an international event. It feels like everything I put in, I dedicated, have come back to me.
That it has come back to you. The guys here and the girls are cheering for you, and you say you've worked hard for it. And especially in game 2, you got 2 steals that were so important for your team to close out that game. Can you walk me through that Elder Dragon steal and that Baron steal that were so important for you guys in game 2?
也可以看到你打得非常努力，然后第二把的时候，你抢了2条非常关键的龙，一条远古龙，一条大龙。想问一下你在抢龙的过程中是什么样的？
因为抢龙的话，基本上惩戒都是5-5开的嘛，所以就是队友。就是队友愿意信任我，让我去抢这条大龙，还有就让我去抢这些龙，让我觉得就是感觉是被队友信任吧。
So Smite is always a 50-50 chance. So he's really grateful that his teammates are able to trust him to give him the confidence to go for the Smite.
All about the team. Karsa, you do take down Fnatic here on their home turf, and even though it was a 3-0, it looked like a very back and forth competitive 3-0. What can you say about the performance of your opponents here today?
我们今天虽然在主场击败了 Fnatic， 而且是3-0，但是也可以看到比赛过程非常忐忑。也想问一下你 Fnatic 这个对局的表现。
我觉得今天2队的表现都比较紧张一点吧。然后我觉得 Fnatic 在前期的表现真的是做的三把都做的蛮好的，就3把在前期都压制了我们。然后就是我觉得赢他们也是我们比较艰辛的就比较难了吧，就做的比较难。
Well, so both teams were playing a bit nervous today. And they give us a lot of early game pressure and be able to, beat us in the early games. But however, he's pretty happy that they were able to come back.
You guys did come back 3-0, fantastic victory. This means you're in the MSI final. How much have you thought about the fact that you might be up against your ex-team, the Flash Wolves, in that final on Sunday?
那你们接下来也要打进决赛了，然后你们有可能会打到你的老东家闪电狼。想问一下，你打到他们你会有什么感受？
因为我之前在有一次采访说我要暴打他们嘛，就这次我觉得我的回答不会变。就我之前不是说要暴打他们吗？然后我的回答不会变。
Alright, so in an interview earlier, he said that he's gonna, beat them pretty badly, and his answer did not change.
All right. Finally, Karsa, you stepped up huge for RNG today, and all the fans have embraced you, also the European fans. Is there anything you want to say to them and all the people that were cheering for you guys?
有什么想对现场的观众、粉丝支持你的人说？
就还是老样子吧，就是谢谢大家愿意支持我，然后我会做得更好，希望能拿到这次决赛的冠军。
So thanks everyone for the support. He'll try to do his best and do better, and hopefully they can get a championship this time.
All right, fantastic. Tons of support for Karsa and for RNG. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Back over to you guys.
Thank you, Shocks. Hearing from Karsa after the longest of our 3 games in this series where Fnatic fought tooth and nail to keep their series hopes alive, but RNG, as they had in the previous 2 games, they found that moment where they could turn it all, take control of the game, and end it in 3 games.
And I really like the language that Papa Smithy used, the inevitable defense from RNG, and the fact that it felt like Fnatic threw everything in the kitchen sink. They were pulling out the Singe, the roaming mid laners, grabbing that Ezreal every single time, but it just wasn't enough to break the only strategy RNG showed today.
Yeah, and if it happens in game 1 where Fnatic gets an early lead and then a few little things go wrong and then lose, you can say it's unlucky. But as soon as it happens 3 games in a row, I think we saw a really unique series here where we probably had the best team at playing with a deficit in RNG and one of the teams that struggles the most to close at MSI in Fnatic. And even though I think they did a great job displaying in the cast how Fnatic was the late game team in Europe, they had switched up and been able to become an early game team, but they never really completed the last part of that strategy. And you could see that it wasn't polished in these games.
Yep, I unfortunately have to agree. Fnatic, they couldn't really bring I mean, they did bring a different style from what they traditionally did in the European scene. Papa Smithy did say that the only real team that could force them to play that like that was Vitality. But what I think this has shown is that there's still a gap in terms of what you need to be able to bring when it comes to international competition, and I have nothing but praise for the way in which RNG were able to not just win through a standard style, but every single time they saw an opportunity to bounce and answer back against what Fnatic had, they did it perfectly.
Ultimately, I do think that it is just a matter of experience, however, for Fnatic. This is still an incredibly young squad when you look at someone like Caps, who's just now got more international experience underneath his belt, you know, still kind of growing into this superstar mid laner that everyone sees he's going to become. And then you have the top laner, Whippo, you know, playing the back half of the playoffs, coming into his first international event. So, while I understand that Fnatic couldn't measure up this time around, I still think that a 3-0 is going to burn, but they should actually feel fairly confident going back into Europe, recognizing that there's still a lot of ceiling left to hit.
Without a doubt, credit should be extended to Fnatic, but I do want to recognize again for RNG, as Deficio put it, I really like the way he put it, you bite them, they bite back, right? That's how they were playing this game. Every advantage that Fnatic found, RNG was quick to find another one of their own. That's exactly what happens 25 minutes into the game. A 3-0 in favor of RNG.
And what impressed me the most is the number of teleports that we saw from Let Me to react to every play that was happening. And that TP there, it was a large punish as Fnatic were trying to collapse down onto the side lane. They tried to use the pressure that Whipper was generating. And unfortunately, because of the quickness that RNG were able to implement in terms of responding, they end up shutting Fnatic down.
Because RNG are just playing in their pocket right now. I've said this again and again. Fnatic remind me so much of Edward Gaming back in the LPL. Very similar power points, very similar style. They like the 5v5. RNG have faced 100 EDGs. They beat them in the final, and it's just if you're going to take it to them, if you're going to try to team fight, that's exactly where they want to be.
Yeah, and I also think it shows in their post-game reactions that they didn't feel challenged. Like, the games would show that Fnatic put up an extremely good fight, and you almost want to say that's the best performance you've seen by a swept team almost ever. But just looking at RNG, Uzi had a little smile on his face, Xiaohu's just kind of looking back and forth. I guess it's over. We play Sunday again, right?
Yeah. Right.
It's almost like they were just warming up, because without actually having their Nexus destroyed in any of those games, they were never under any real threat emotionally.
Again, with full control of the game, it was Fnatic who, again, fighting tooth and nail, tried to mount that base defense. Of course, Reckless coming up with his first pentakill of the only pentakill of the MSI tournament so far, after having one denied from him earlier. This one brought to you by Acer Predator.
Yeah, and just the fact that Reckless had to dig deep here, and it almost looked like the comeback story. I think I've seen this anime several times. I was waiting for the protagonist Reckless to make his debut, and at least he got this moment.
And if they would have been able to take this pentakill and move it to victory, it's when the series really would have gotten interesting, because this was the moment where I think everyone had given up, and it reinvigorated the crowd and pretty much reinvigorated Fnatic. The fact that he chased down the quadra kill, they're down 9,000 gold. Whippo also made an amazing play at the start of this fight, and then this is really just a matter of being able to close it out.
And the fun thing about this in particular was we were sitting back here talking about how Fnatic could still win this game. Like, the goal doesn't matter anymore. It's all about how you execute on those fights. But Fnatic, just like they have done throughout this series, failed to find the fights. They could fail to properly execute and set up the fights they want. And RNG were just like, okay, we'll play it steady, we'll play it calm, and this evolution of RNG almost seems unstoppable.
In an interesting way, that pentakill was kind of like the little smack to the face that RNG needed to say, okay, hold up, we can still lose this game, right? Let's slow it back down. Let's re-control the game. Let's recognize and remember what it's like to play at the highest level under this kind of pressure and actually close out the best of 5. They control the game, they pick up the buffs, they move in for the final fight, which happens inside Fnatic's base. Let's rewatch those last final moments.
And this was a setup where they had very slowly taken all of the outer inhibitors, and they were not going to hard commit without getting the pick first. This time, Caps is in front of the team instead of behind the team. They didn't have to dive through. That leaves no window for Whippo to have any disruption. And then even at this point, they're still willing to play it slow. Look how far back Uzi is for the majority of this fight.
When you listen to the mic checks from the LPL players, a lot of the time when they're coordinating fights, they repeat, slow the fight down, slow the fight down, go, 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 go. So it's very much about how they approach the tempo of the fight and deciding exactly when they're going to go for that killing blow rather than just ramming everything into it.
In an interesting way, it's like the least exciting fight to one of the most exciting series that we've watched. It's quite a way to close out a game, to be tempered all of a sudden and say, hey, let's make sure we lock it down.
But credit where credit is due. You can see that Fnatic did put up that fight. You can see it in Reckless's damage output. This is what people wanted to see from him. Change up your champion pool. Grab something that's more tournament meta, if you will, in the Ezreal. He got it all 3 times. He tried to do work. He got the pentakill. Unfortunately, it just wasn't enough.
It's just so frustrating as a European fan to watch them get all these early gold leads and then fail to transition them, but it just speaks to how well RNG have played this series, and I cannot wait to see what they can do in the final up against their opponents that are yet to be decided.
Before we get to RNG looking towards the final on Sunday, I want to put a capper on Fnatic. One of the things we talked about coming into the top of the day was the underperformance of a player, a star player like Reckless. He had his 2 highest DPM games of the tournament here today.
And I think he played with a lot of confidence in the laning phase today, which is something he's never really been able to do against Uzi. It was helped greatly by the fact that they first picked Ezreal all 3 games, and the fact that RNG was okay taking the Caitlyn into it, but it was different mentality from Reckless today for sure.
Yeah, and I don't want to flame Reckless. I think he had a decent tournament, definitely slumped in the very beginning. That said, on a power pick like Ezreal, your DPM is going to go up anyway. You're on a poke-based sort of champion, but looking at his positioning in the team fights, and it's not necessarily always on Reckless, maybe you also look at Hilly, there's just not quite the communication that you need to execute correctly. You said all the time about those Tom Kench ults, or excuse me.
Yeah, I definitely think there was a desync between all of Fnatic in the way they were setting up team fights. Even the last final fight we saw there with Caps in the front, the Tom Kench Ezreal was an extremely good example where they're getting dove by Vladimir, and Reckless is shifting and flashing away from his protection. So not everything's worked out.
I will say, though, that Whippo had a great series. Like, for a young player to come in and place Soaz, one of the big storylines we had throughout the playoffs was very much, can he fill the shoes of Soaz? And I felt like he's done a fantastic job.
But a lot of times, if we talk about this series coming down to the team fights, it's the experience, right? Knowing how to operate within the team fight, almost in second nature, right? Am I positioned next to the right person? Am I prioritizing the right person when it comes to my damage? For Fnatic, they fell short today. For RNG, they came up big with the 3-0, and it takes a lot to perform to the roars of the crowd on this big stage, and especially in front of this Parisian crowd. But one player in particular seemed unfazed by the pressure and earned himself player of the series. That player is Let Me in the top lane.
And it's about time, frankly, that the rest of RNG has shown up to Paris. Uzi has been the hard carry of this team all throughout groups, but finally, Let Me, Xiaohu, Karsa, they all stepped up, but Let Me, for me, was the game changer. His Vladimir in game #1, his Ornn in the following series, just constantly setting his team up and absorbing a lot of the pressure that Fnatic were throwing at him.
And for me, it was just the way in which he utilized flanks and the way in which he was able to maximize his teleport usage. You never felt like he was costing his team anything, and he was always in the right place at the right time.
And I think what's not shown here is the fact that his jungle proximity was incredibly mismatched. There was a large amount of resources that Broxa and even Caps spent to try and take Let Me out of the game. And put Whippo in an advantageous situation, and that was, what, 4 deaths in the entire series? So he did a great job.
All right, well, earlier we asked you to tweet out which champion picks you felt really swung the scales in this series, and here's what you had to say. First up, PTY Hendo thought it was all Caitlyn, specifically stating the fact she can dominate her lane so hard makes the game much harder for Fnatic.
I mean, yeah, I believe that to an extent. There was a tower that fell in that game around 8-9 minutes, and it certainly didn't help when they started snowballing Uzi. But ultimately, Uzi could have easily reached for the Kog'Maw there, which has been his champion of preference for this tournament. So I think it was simply that RNG were never strained. They never felt that they had to, you know, mix up the champion pool and find something that peaked a little bit earlier.
All right, next up, Princess Samiyano is convinced that the most OP pick was Xiaohu's Aurelia in game 1.
I will say, I think that he played the team fights beautifully, and his mechanics on the champion were pretty impressive. Do I think it was the deciding factor? Personally, no. I felt like Let Me's Vladimir had a much larger impact in those fights, but credit to Xiaohu bringing it out in front of such a big crowd on such a high-stake game. He performed extremely well.
Yeah, it's not easy to play Aurelia in these very chaotic team fights, especially when you're trying to dodge around a Tom Kench. So a lot of guts to pull that out in the first game.
All right, Vedius, I think you'll like our next one here. Finally, Kramer Lediger feels Vladimir was the real tilter, having everything a pick needs to be an absolute menace.
I think it was really strong. I think Frost talked about it wonderfully earlier on, where he can fill both the roles of a side lane threat along with a teamfight champion, and if you utilize his flanks perfectly, he can be unstoppable.
He's also just a great flex pick for RNG themselves. Yes, it was Let Me who pulled it out in game #1, but it was Xiaohu who grabbed it later on in the series. So I agree, and I think Fnatic is also aligned because they decided to ban it away.
Yeah, there wasn't much that Fnatic was doing against Vladimir, so it was smart to ban it in the last game. and a great pick for RNG.
Of course, we'll be curious to see which of these picks RNG decides to reserve for their series on Sunday, and of course how teams who have watched this might respond to that in the draft.
Yeah, and I actually don't feel that confident about RNG going into the finals after this performance, depending on what they're showing. If it is true that they were just saying, okay, Caitlyn until they beat us, late game until they beat us, that's a good thing. But I've seen this play out a couple of different ways, and this could actually be their best card. They're saying, oh yeah, let's give red side, let's give Ezreal to either Prey or Betty. Let's give mid lane pressure over the other team because we'll get the crit scaling up until late game. They played like that at the start of MSI and lost a lot of games.
All right, go ahead.
I'm aligned there. I was also concerned, but the more that I think about it, the more that I feel that because they've shown the Kog'Maw on the earlier part of the split, or excuse me, the tournament, that they can quickly grab a different champion and pick a different window that they want to play in.
Taking a look at Flash Wolves and Kingzone, let's go ahead and put them into Fnatic's position in this series. Do you think those two teams are more capable of executing on the advantages that Fnatic built for themselves today and maybe actually challenge RNG in a best of 5?
Yes, I do. I also think that both teams have a few more options in terms of how they win the game. One of the big things that we said about Fnatic was you need caps on Aroma so that he can help his side lane wins. For Flash Wolves and Kingzone, you do not need your mid laner to help you win the side lane. Yes, it's one way in which you can play. We've seen it from BDD and Maple, but we know the bottom lanes of both these teams are extremely strong threats. You know you can always rely on Khan to be a split-pushing demon in the late game. I feel just like the number of options available for the second and third seed on the other side of the bracket are just so much wider, which means that if they get an early lead, they will be a lot scarier to deal with.
As well, I want to talk about Karsa. Again, we have to remember how little this guy has played on the MSI stage so far this tournament. Comes in here, starts for the first 2 games, and comes up big, especially in that second game in clutch moments to get the smite steals, kind of provide that momentum for the rest of his team. How are we looking at this guy as compared to MLXG forward towards Sunday?
So it completely changes the style of the team. Karsa more so plays towards the laners where he'll give a lot more attention to Xiaohu. It's a bit more about the tracking, the calmness in the jungle, if you will, and also a different champion pool, more like the Skarners, the Zax. He's a better Graves player, whereas when MLXG comes in, you know it's about to get spicy. He's going to get in your face, he's going to play the duelers like the Trundle, like the Olaf, and it's more so the team bending to his will. It's MLXG that's blitzing in and starting the play, and the rest of RNG collapsing around him or leaving him out to die, if you will, whereas Karsa is more like the insurance policy for RNG when they choose to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I think specifically against Fnatic with Caps being the primary carry, it was a smart start to have Karsa in, though, who's better at ganking mid lane because they didn't want Caps to take over the game. As they move towards the finals and they're up against either Flash Wolves or Kingzone, I think they'll still start him in game 1 so MLXG can get information, but I think they'll be much faster to put MLXG back in the game because that allows Uzi to play more aggressively, and that's their ultimate win condition.
All right, Vedius, we're saying that this is one of the closest 3-0 sweeps we've seen, so I want to know what the learnings here for RNG, beyond just, hey, maybe play a little bit cleaner, especially when you're looking forward at these other 2 squads that they might go up against. What needs to be retooled and worked on between now and Sunday to guarantee that the LPL walks away with the title of MSI champions?
Well, I think that relying on late game team fights isn't a super effective strategy. I know Jat talked a little bit about it earlier, and I think that if you're drafting Karsa, while we did see a lot of strong early game performances from him, we know that teams like Flash Wolves and Kingzone just seem to be that much more effective at finding those early leads. The interesting thing, though, is when we watched RNG in the group stages play up against these teams, they were still able to find these early game leads. So I think it's simply a matter of, in terms of learnings, I don't know if there are a huge amount because I know that RNG have these available options to them. It's about whether or not in the time, in terms of their preparation, they just decided Fnatic can't close games, so we're just going to rely on a late-game strat.
Well, they've got a day to rest and scout their opponents. With RNG promoting to the finals, the only thing left to do is to see who they'll face. We return tomorrow for our last semifinal match as the Flash Wolves from the LMS look to take down the LCK's Kingzone. That's going to do it, though, for us here today. So for myself, the casters, and the entire live broadcast crew, thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow for more MSI 2018.
Going to get better from here as we jump into Summoner's Rift. decide who gets to go on to the final here in only a couple of days. TP's completed. Xiaohu and Uzi both decide to show up. It's going to be big. It's going to be a party. Lemme coming in from the flank. That's going to be big onto the back line as Reckless tries to get himself away. Going to be taken down before he can as Proxa tries to get some revenge. But Peel is not enough. And the killing spree for RNG is only going to get better from here. Xiaohu taken low, but it's a double kill for Uzi. It's a double kill for Xiaohu. And that is going to be the ace.
Vladimir's here.
Oh, Xiaohu shows up at just the right time. You couldn't have done that better if you tried. Into the pink goes Karsa. Baron going to be taken down below 1,000 HP. And Karsa steals it away. Fnatic finds disaster. Not going to be Hillisting with the flash to keep the AD carry alive. But RNG is just too much. 5-man strong. Still in the base. They'll take down Fnatic for a second time. Megan and Uzi have to retreat from this one. Caps and Proxa showing up. MLXG looking to come in from behind. Tom Kench ulti goes through. Still looking to make the plays. Caps over the ball. Going to be chased down. Hillisang trying to back himself away. Proxa looking to go for a pull. Can't quite find it. 2 already dead. Reckless. Oh, make it 3. Reckless has no way away from Uzi. He's going to look for more trying to get away from this one. Surely there's no way out. A Quadra. Let me wanting to get away. But that should not happen. Proxa wants to provide the CC. Into the fight as they proc the GA onto MLXG. He's going to look to be taken down here. But instead the damage comes through. Fnatic's members will fall. That is game. And RNG will move